One Piece Supreme Control, Chapter 1-20. Chapter 1 Forgotten Dreams. The warm wind was blowing gently, and the smell of the sea was introduced into the palace of the Holy Land Marijoa in bursts, making people take a deep breath, and they seemed to be able to see the deep blue sea. In the splendid and gorgeous palace, Yang Qing supported his head with one hand and looked at the blooming flowers outside the window. See you on calendar 1497, September 8th. The weather is fine. Today is still as boring as yesterday. Oh, by the way, perhaps it is worth noting that the man named Roger completed a great journey today and is called One Piece. To me, it's a really sad story. Ah, what a fucking world. I actually traveled through it. It's been 3 years. I'm not sure what world I've come to. I was just a little skeptical before, but now it's finally confirmed. I actually traveled to an anime called One Piece in. But, why, I don't have the excitement of other crossing peers. For the past 3 years, I have been living a very comfortable life every day, like a royal family. Oh, yes, it seems that I am a royal family. They say that I am a Tianlong person, a world noble. Dragon Man. Oh, what a fucking name, it doesn't sound good at all. And today, my life is still the same as the previous 3 years. Like a walking dead. This is a short diary. After Yang Qing wrote it silently, he closed the book, and his young face showed a distress that was completely different from his age. He came to the world of One Piece 3 years ago and is only 3 years old now, but his age hidden under the surface is an adult. Originally, he had just been promoted to general manager, got a promotion and a salary increase, and then married by Fume. Thinking about it, he was a little excited, but he didn't want the sky to fall. A flower pot fell from the sky, ending his happy life. When he woke up again, he was a newborn baby. He was very dissatisfied and extremely dissatisfied with transmigration. Although he had changed from a general manager who worked hard for others to a Tianlong person who came to eat and open his mouth, he was still very unhappy in his heart. Your Highness, Lucifer, it's time for you to have breakfast. Yang Qing, who was sitting at the table, was disturbed by a timid voice, woke up, frowned, and Yang Qing looked to the side. A slender figure in a maid's outfit, Chando, stood there holding a plate, lowered his head and didn't dare to look at Yang Qing. On the plate was a steaming breakfast, which was exquisitely cooked and well presented. Am I scary? Yang Qing's young voice entered the maid's ears, making the latter even more nervous. No, Your Highness. The maid's voice trembled. She was about to cry. She was frightened, and the dragon people are notorious for their brutality and vexatiousness. What's your name? Yang Qing stood up and asked quietly. Love, Alice. Alice said tremblingly. It looks like you're very afraid of me. Yang Qing stretched out, stood on tiptoe, took the plate, and then picked up the fork and spoon. Just as he was about to speak, he frowned. Are there chopsticks? Chopsticks. Alice was stunned, not understanding what Yang Qing said. Yang Qing shook his head, then picked up the fork and spoon, and solved the breakfast in the plate with difficulty. During this process, Alice stood stiffly behind Yang Qing, with fine beads of sweat oozing from her forehead, and her heart was up and down. Today is the first time she has come to serve the Tianlong people. What are the consequences? It was just that she heard that her friend who served the Tianlong people before would be beaten if they were mild, or would not be able to see the sun the next day if they were serious. Thinking of this, she shuddered again. It seems that you are very afraid of me. Yang Qing asked questioningly, and after asking, he answered by himself, yes, you are afraid of me, because I am a Tianlong person. Born above all of you, right? Alice was even more frightened, and was about to cry, what the tyrannical draconian was going to do to her, even though he was still a child. The world is sick. After pondering for a while, Yang Qing spoke seriously. Then he stood up and walked out the door. Alice lowered her head and didn't see Yang Qing go out. She didn't look up until she found that there was silence beside her, and found that Yang Qing was far away from him, so she followed him out in a panic. The servants who serve me are different every day. I have to ask their names every time. which is really annoying. Yang Qing stood in the flower garden with some distress. Since you are afraid of me, then you will take care of me every day from now on. Alice was startled and stunned. There was a hint of mischief on Yang Qing's young face, and he added, "Remember, if I am not satisfied at all, I will execute you." Alice was crying, frightened. Yang Qing's parents are standard Tianlong people. They have big bubbles on their heads and look arrogant. They walk in front of people, arrogant and domineering. After breakfast, Yang Qing left after seeing his parents. He doesn't care much about his parents, he prefers his younger brother. This is a handsome boy with black hair and bright eyes just like him. He is only 2 years old and doesn't understand anything. Every time he sees him, he will smile silly. "Ha, Jess, look at you silly." Yang Qing pinched her brother's face, cheerfully. Ah, the 2-year-old Jace, who wasn't ready to speak, just smirked, seeing. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Yang Qing, he was obviously very happy. "Look, I'll just say that the bubble is stupid. After you take it off, does the air feel a lot better?" Yang Qing teased Jace with a very happy face. Ah, 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 ah. Jace waved his little hand and nodded his head, agreeing with his brother's words. Alice stood behind Yang Qing, very curious. Are dragons like this? It doesn't seem so scary. The morning passed quickly. After eating the lunch that Alice brought, Yang Qing waved Alice to step back and stayed in the room by herself. Alice was still in a daze until she walked out of the Tianlongren's palace. She walked out completely without being beaten or scolded. She was also asked to take care of the 3-year-old child in the future. She just went back to her home in such a daze, foolishly all day. Shantiani Qigong. Yang Qing closed his eyes and sank into his heart. This is a game full of martial arts, and there are all kinds of martial arts in it. Yang Qing is excited just by looking at it. Although compared to the powerhouses in this world who are at every turn to destroy the world, the martial arts in martial arts are a bit underwhelming. Qinggong, martial arts, internal skills, all of them are what I want. The strong, everyone wants to do it, it's just to see if God will give you a chance. Shantiani Qigong is a book of internal skills that was distributed at the beginning of the game to lay the foundation. In addition, there are a large number of martial arts moves in the game system mall. For 3 years, Yang Qing has been cultivating this internal skill since he was born. Although he has achieved some achievements, his martial arts practice is based on the accumulation of time. Just getting started. And today, he was a little excited. 3 years of accumulation, for 3 full years, I didn't use a single coin, but a tael of silver, just for today. Yang Qing clicked on the system mall interface, and countless swordsmanships flickered with streamers, and one after another silhouettes performed the mystery of swordsmanship, which was dazzling, but he didn't pay attention, just kept turning his hands backwards. Finally, he stopped. There, a thin booklet lay quietly, and the 4 quaint characters on the cover flickered with dim light, exuding a sharp artistic conception. Little Li Fei Dao. That's right, this martial arts secret book that Yang Qing has been looking forward to for 3 years is Xiao Li Fei Dao. Just waiting for this moment. Little Li Fei Dao, there are no false strikes, one strike, never leaving a living hole, the strongest sword technique. Yang Qing trembled, shakes hands, and opened this book of the strongest swordsmanship. Ding! Congratulations on learning the peerless martial arts Xiao Li Fei Dao. This is a happy moment. Yang Qing almost jumped up, but he finally held back. His status is different now. He is a noble, or a world noble, so he can't be so shrewd. Then, he finally got out of the house, found his 2-year-old brother, pinched Jace's younger brother for an afternoon, and when he left, Yang Qing had a smile on his face, and Jace couldn't stop crying. The sound is terrible. At night, Yang Qing sat in the yard, looking at the stars forming a bright ribbon, thinking about his future. When he came to this world, he had no friends, no future, no goals, and everything seemed very confusing. Only the game system brought by it gave him interest. Here I have everything. Don't worry about food, lodging, live like an emperor, have great power, but why? It doesn't make any sense at all. He suddenly changed his posture, lay on the lawn, looked at the twinkling stars, and remembered the man in the newspapers during the day when the adults were talking about each other. Gold Roger, One Piece. It seems to be very interesting. He remembered his previous life. When he was still young, he also loved One Piece madly, and was amazed at the friendship and dreams inside. I was moved. But as he stepped into society, he became a walking corpse, was busy living, was overwhelmed by reality, and forgot his dreams. Dreams feel so far away. He shot and grabbed towards the starry sky. What is my dream? Oh I forgot. Chapter 2 Different Voices. Humans are free, and human dreams are free. Dreams and blood are the themes of this world. For dreams, people can dedicate themselves to the unknown dangers. Yang Qing, who lived in his previous life, was eroded by the numbness of life and forgot his dreams. But living under this sea-like free sky, a certain impulse in the depths of his body breathes uncontrollably, and then becomes stronger and stronger. After Alice experienced the panic on the first day, and then went to take care of Yang Qing, she was no longer afraid, and was replaced by curiosity. When people are curious, they will understand, and as she understands, she gradually discovers the difference of this Tianlong person. First of all, he is very smart. Although he only has the body of a 3-year-old child, he knows a lot in his mind, even more than she knows. Second, he is very different from other Tianlong people. He has never had that strange thing in his head. There is no inherent arrogance, and finally, after her observation, this Tianlong person is a good person. Yes, a good guy. Maybe good people are a normal word for commoners. But it is surprising when used on Tianlong people. It has been 2 months since Alice entered the Tianlongren Palace, and she no longer had the initial fear, but began to like this job. Just today, Yang Qing suddenly asked such a question. Dream. Alice was stunned for a moment, then a little shy. My dream is to find a better husband in this life, and then get married. Oh, Yang Qing glanced at Alice. You are also 18 years old this year, and in 2 years you will be the age of marriage. Shaking his head, Yang Qing entered the room. Through everything described in the newspaper, he seemed to see a magnificent sea, with countless ships sailing on the wind and waves, the cheers and laughter of the crew, and the sound of toasting. Not yet. I have to say that Yang Qing is curious about the outside world, but he is too young, and his identity is quite sensitive. Dragon people, they are the highest of a group of power. But at the same time, they didn't have the slightest power or the power to protect themselves. For 3 years, Yang Qing could see clearly that they were just a group of canaries kept in cages. Without strength and without the ability to protect yourself, you can only stay here temporarily. I'm going out to sea. Although he still doesn't know what to do in this world, Yang Qing has already had this idea. In a blink of an eye, 2 years have passed. Little Jess, who used to sit in a stroller, has grown into a child now, with big bright eyes and long black hair, looking very refreshing and smart. Brother, take me to play, I'm so boring. Little Jess in a denim shirt ran over and said loudly. Behind him was a group of guards wearing black dresses and black hats. Oh, little Jess. Yang Qing was lying on a chair reading a book, with the beautiful Alice standing behind him. Unlike Jace, Yang Qing had no guards beside him, only Alice, and the same thing was that neither of the 2 brothers had that weird-looking bubble on their heads. Where do you want to go? What do you want to play? Yang Qing asked with interest. His younger brother hadn't looked for him for a long time, and suddenly came over today. What did he want to do? I want to go outside. Little Jess suddenly ran over and said in a low voice in Yang Qing's ear. Going outside. Yang Qing frowned. What are you going to do outside? Brother, just take me there. I want to go see it. Little Jess took Yang Qing's hand and shook it, and began to act coquettishly. The latter had no choice but to nod, put the book in Alice's hand, and then walked forward. Follow my brother. Don't make a sound, don't tell your father and mother. Got it, brother? Jace exclaimed happily. In this way, the group quietly left the Tianlongren's palace. Since Yangqing came to this world, although he was not very closed, he rarely had contact with the outside world. He seldom went to the streets, and he had people to take care of his clothing, food, housing, and transportation, and he didn't need anything. Brother, Charles Ross, said that there will be a new slave today. As soon as he left the palace, Jace said to Yangqing in a low voice excitedly. Oh, slave. Yangqing narrowed his eyes, a suppressed aura emanating from his body. 2 years of practice have made him much stronger. He clearly felt Alice's body trembling behind him, and her face changed. Who is Charles Rosé? The smile on Yangqing's face disappeared, replaced by cold. Charles Ross is a friend I've met recently. What's the matter, brother? Jace was a little scared, and in his heart he respected his brother and was very obedient. Did he tell you about slaves? Yangqing asked. Yes, he said that we Tianlong people are world nobles, and we can buy obedient slaves and pull them out to play. Jace replied looking at Yangqing's face. Yangqing sneered, and then he stared at Jace's face. You remember, Jace, you are not allowed to buy slaves in the future, and you are not allowed to do things that cause harm to others. Oh, Jace nodded. Take me to Charles Ross, I'd like to see the so-called slaves. Yangqing stepped forward and walked forward, and Jace quickly followed uneasy. He could see that his brother was angry. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. People are equal, no one is born superior. Jess, you must also remember this sentence from your brother. On the way, Yangqing gently told Jess this sentence, and let the servants beside him. His face changed, and the look in the eyes of this Tianlong man was a little different. Tianlong people are born superior. They are the descendants of the 20 kings who created the world. They are the descendants of the Creator, and they are born to control everything. However, in the mouth of the young master, they heard different voices. People are equal. In the mouth of a celestial dragon, such incredible words came out. This shocked the hearts of all the guard servants, looking at Yangqing with surprise, admiration, and disbelief. They faintly felt that this heavenly dragon was different. The difference lies in the temperament that surrounds him, which is a kind of benevolent temperament. Suddenly there was such an idea in their hearts. This Tianlong person may change the world in the future. Just because he made a voice different from this era. Chapter 3 Slaves. Along the way, the identities of Yangqing and others were quickly recognized, and the faces of the civilians changed greatly. They quickly fell to the ground, trembling, and did not dare to look up. Brother, why are they kneeling? The innocent Jace asked Yangqing. Yangqing's mouth trembled, not knowing how to answer. You remember, they don't have to kneel, and you can't ask others to kneel for you in the future. Well, I remember, brother. Little Jess nodded, then saw the civilians on the side of the road, tilted his head for a while, and suddenly laughed. Then he ran to the side of the road, and under the terrified eyes of the civilians, he helped an old man up. Grandpa, get up quickly, my brother said you don't need to kneel. Ah, no. Who knows? The old man fell to the ground with a look of horror, leaving Jace there at a loss. Jace, come here, Yangqing beckoned. Don't worry, my brother will take you to play. Jace nodded happily, forgetting the scene just now. Soon, the group left here and walked towards the slave trade. Brother, I saw that the old man was very afraid of me. Jace said suddenly and glumly on the road. I know, Yangqing smiled. Brother is really good, he knows everything. Jace looked at Yangqing with admiration. In the eyes of little Jace, his brother was the most powerful. Ha ha, Yangqing smiled happily and touched his younger brother. They are afraid of you, can you tell them not to be afraid? Remember, be friends with people who treat you well. Yeah, I see, brother, Jace exclaimed. At this moment, the guards beside Yangqing looked at the two brothers with a touch of softness. Originally, their eyes were only cold, like dead people. These are two different draconians. Soon they were at the door of the slave trade. At this moment, a group of people in black came over, and the head opposite was a little Tianlong man who was sucking snot bubbles and staring at the bubbles. It was Saint Charles. "Brother, he is Charles Rose," Jace said loudly. "Oh." Yang Qing narrowed his eyes and looked at the fat man with snot snorting. He felt a sense of disgust in his heart. "You are going to take my brother to buy slaves?" "Ah, are you Jace Saint's brother? Slaves are fun, you see, do you want one too?" Charles Roth shook the rope in his hand. In front of the rope, a slave with a collar, crawling tremblingly. "He's so pitiful." Jace looked sympathetic. "I don't know why, when I see you, I get angry. I'll kill myself and teach my brother bad," Yang Qing said coldly. Then he strode forward and walked to the front of Charles Ross. He is taller than this Charles Ross, so he is condescending at the moment, looking at the latter. "It sucks." Crack. A loud slap sounded, and Charles Rose's chubby face swelled up instantly. When Charles Ross was beaten, he was stunned for a moment, and then felt a severe pain in his cheek. With a wow, he cried in fear, and then ran to his home. Jess stood at the back, looking at Yang Qing excitedly, his eyes full of adoring little stars. "Aren't his bubbles very silly?" Yang Qing asked with a smile when she saw Jace's eyes. "Yes," Jace exclaimed. "Ha ha ha." Then, Yang Qing and his party entered the slave trade. As several people entered, the surrounding area was completely noisy. The Tianlong people were beaten. Something big happened. "That black-haired kid is in trouble. He's dead." Some people saw that some Navy soldiers had already rushed to report the situation. I believe that in a short while, a large group of Navy soldiers will come here and surround it. The slave market was huge, and the crowds of chairs were surprising. Here, the concept of hierarchy is also very serious. In the front row, it is sparse and few people sit, but the seats in the back are very full. Noisy and busy. It's so lively, there are so many people. Jace was a little excited when he saw so many people for the first time. Yang Qing smiled and nodded, and the two brothers, the guards and leaders, walked to the front row. Yang Qing came to the front row, glanced around, and found that there were many people looking at him, and then saw that several people in the front row were wearing bubbles, and understood that this is the so-called privilege, and only Tianlong people can sit here. "Sit." Yang Qing, Alice, and Jace sat down. Because Jace was still young, Alice hugged Jace and sat next to Yang Qing. Jess didn't think there was anything wrong, but his group of guards took a cold breath, and the eyes under the sunglasses changed fiercely. Lord Jace Saint was actually picked up. The seat of the world's nobles, there are civilians sitting on it. Behind Yang Qing and the others, a group of wandering eyes gathered on the two of them. The few Tianlong people next door just glanced at their brothers, then withdrew their gazes, closed their eyes, and stopped talking, obviously recognizing them. Soon, the auction will begin. The host was wearing a clown's clothes, with a big red nose and a top hat. It was very funny. When Jace saw it, he laughed happily. Yang Qing looked at his younger brother happy, and there was a smile on his face. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Just more joy. The host looked at the two children in the front row, and was stunned for a while, and then his good quality made him recover and began to introduce the auction items. "Haha, everyone here, hello everyone. Just like last time, we are still all kinds of slaves in this auction, and we are here to dedicate them to everyone. Different from the last time, one of the slaves this time is of considerable value. He is a pirate, and he is still a child. What's even more surprising is that his bounty is a full 50 million. Yang Qing did nothing to hear this, but he keenly observed that the eyes of the nobles behind him lit up one by one. Besides that, the finale of this auction is a devil fruit. Legend, it is the strongest devil fruit. Eat it, you can have the power of God. Below, in the crowd, the eyes lit up again. Devil fruit, the secret treasure in the sea, eat it to have powerful power. For human beings, becoming stronger is an eternal dream, and everyone wants to have superhuman strength. Devil fruit is undoubtedly a shortcut. Yang Qing's eyes also brightened. He really wanted to study the magical thing like devil fruit, and also wanted to see what kind of power it would bring. There are 3 types of devil fruits: nature, animal, and superhuman. The natural type is the strongest. Everyone who eats the natural type devil fruit has a powerful power almost immediately. Chapter 4: Eat to have the power of God. Soon, the auction was held, and the slaves were pulled out one by one, and then bought by the nobles below. Yang Qing had no interest in this, and when Jace found out that the so-called slaves turned out to be some poor people, he was disappointed and began to feel gloomy. Next, we bring the climax of this auction. The youngest bounty pirate in history, Ghost Dillons, has a bounty of 50 million. He is a devil fruit person, and he is the pirate with the highest bounty for the first time. More importantly, he is only a 10-year-old. Children, the host shouted excitedly. Following his introduction, a teenager with shackles on his hands and a collar around his neck was brought up. His cheeks were dirty, his hair was messy, and his clothes were tattered. He looked very embarrassed, but Yang Qing saw that this young man's eyes were very bright, full of persistence and hope. It's interesting. Yang Qing smiled. He was interested in this young man. The reserve price, 80 million Bailey, start quoting now. The host was very passionate, but the scene was quiet, which made him a little embarrassed. Seeing this scene, Yang Qing was also happy. Finally, he raised his hand. I paid 100 million to buy him. As soon as Yang Qing's tender voice sounded, the audience fell silent. No one thought that it was the Tianlong people who made the bid. Even the young man, who was originally calm, was surprised at this moment. No one asked for another offer, and no one dared to compete with the Tianlong people, because the consequences were very serious. Well, in this case, the slave belongs to the Lord. Dragon people, they can't afford to offend. Dillons was quickly taken off the stage, and then the slaves were pulled out to start the auction. The atmosphere that followed was very intense, as if in order to release the grievances that had not dared to speak just now, the nobles were blushing, pushing the atmosphere here. Climax. A group of stupid people. Yang Qing sneered, then quietly closed his eyes, waiting for the finale to appear. He is looking forward to that devil fruit, the legendary secret treasure that will become stronger after eating it. Who doesn't want it? Soon, the auction came to an end. When a red brocade box was taken out and placed in the host's hand, the audience fell into a calm. Devil fruit. The secret treasure of the sea really exists. I don't know what department it is. Could it be a natural department? People were talking in amazement, their eyes glowing with longing light. The atmosphere of the venue suddenly changed, and the people who had been hiding around with closed eyes opened their eyes at this moment, and the light flickered in them. The secret treasure of the sea. The fruit of the devil. The source of power. That's right, we have finally ushered in the finale of this auction as you have been looking forward to. The host shouted loudly, enthusiastically, and trembled with excitement. Devil fruit. Let you have the power of a god, dominate the great root, and become a strong man. With a slam, he opened the brocade box, and the fruit inside entered everyone's sight. At this moment, the whole scene was dark, and the light only hit the devil fruit. What a miraculous fruit this is. Just put it there quietly, it can attract everyone's thoughts, make people excited and crazy about it. The golden casing shines brightly, it is brilliant and charming. Golden devil fruit. This shape is superhuman. Unfortunately, it's not a nature department. Think about it and know that once the natural system appears, it is all held by the top combat power. How can it be spread to the auction? It's just superhuman, hey. At this moment, everyone's attention was gathered on this magical fruit. Some people carefully observed and studied it. Finally, they found that this fruit was not on the devil's illustration book. They couldn't help shaking their heads in disappointment. Unknown fruit, not very valuable. It has been a long time since the appearance of devil fruits. The powerful and valuable fruits have been collected by people with a heart and placed on the devil's illustration for easy identification. Only those that are tasteless or worthless will be discarded and not included in the records. Obviously, this bright-looking devil fruit might not have as much power as his appearance. "What a beautiful fruit, brother," Jace said happily as he looked at the golden devil fruit. "Haha, it's very beautiful, my brother will take it in a while," Yang Qing said happily. Most people saw this devil fruit and thought that it was of little value, and had given up in their hearts. But there were only a limited number of people, their eyes shrank and their hearts were shocked. Sure enough, it has appeared again. In legend, it is said to eat the fruit that has the power of a god. Make sure to get it, no matter the cost. And the few Tianlong people sitting next to Yang Qing also laughed when they saw the appearance of the devil fruit. Devil fruit, the servants who bought it and gave it to me are not bad. This is a powerful devil fruit, a magical devil fruit. The owner who brought it to auction once said that if you eat it, you will have the power of a god. The reserve price is 300 million. Starting the auction now. The host shouted hoarsely, but his heart was full of ups and downs. A normal devil fruit is only 100 million, but this one is 300 million at a low price. Who is it? Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, there was boos from the audience. The rubbish that doesn't appear in the pictorial. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. You sell 300 million, who are you deceiving? Who do you think I am? I am a royal family and a noble. Stop it, scumbag. There was a hint of playfulness in Yang Qing's eyes. Looking at the lively scene in the field, he felt a little emotional. The identity of Tianlong is still somewhat useful, at least in terms of money, he doesn't have to worry about it at all. 310 million. The first bidder appeared, the Tianlong man, the old man sitting next to Yang Qing's left. The scene was quiet, and everyone was surprised. Tianlong people usually don't care about such things at all. Because they can call the generals in one sentence, they have the greatest power in the world, and they don't need to have power at all. What's going on? Moreover, the Tianlong people have bid, who else dares to bid? Who dares to risk the world to offend a Tianlong person? People sighed secretly in their hearts. The ownership of this devil fruit is afraid that the dust has settled. But just when people thought that this devil fruit belonged to Tianlongren, a faint voice rang out. 350 million. What? Everyone was shocked and couldn't help but start looking for the source of the sound. Yang Qing was also stunned, and looked back curiously. At this moment, the Tianlong people sitting in the front row turned their heads. A depressing, strange atmosphere began to spread throughout the audience. Chapter 5 Dragons in the Cage. Yang Qing could clearly see that the old Tianlong man sitting next to him, his face under the bubble became blue at a very fast speed, and his anger immediately rushed to his heart. Some people actually dare to go against the heavenly dragon people, dare to disobey the decision made by a heavenly dragon people. This is contempt for the highest power in the world and contempt for the world's nobles, which is absolutely not allowed. Depressed, the audience fell into a depressing atmosphere. Everyone stared at the figure who made the sound, the figure shrouded in black robes. At this moment, he is in the spotlight. Kill him. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the old Tianlongren, and he slammed the golden cane in his hand, exuding a dignified aura, which was cultivated for a long time under a high position, the aura of power. In an instant, a team of men in black appeared extremely quickly. While running, they had long drawn out the guns around their waists and aimed the cold muzzle at the figure shrouded in black robes. The audience fell into a strange silence, and the tense atmosphere squeezed everyone's heart. Finally, a group of men in black approached the man in black. Bang! Without hesitation, the men in black pulled the trigger, and the icy muzzle spewed murderous bullets. Some people closed their eyes in fear, and some women even let out a short scream. Only the Tianlong people in the front row showed cruel smiles, and dared to snatch things from the Tianlong people and seek death. However, What happened next was beyond everyone's expectations. The man in black robe was not dead, he didn't even have a single scar on his body. He dodged the bullet. Yang Qing's pupils shrank suddenly. Someone was faster than a bullet. If it was in a previous life, what a powerful person he was, I can't imagine it. Immediately afterwards, under the gaze of the audience, his black robe moved, and he moved. A black streamer appeared, like a demon from hell, waving his cruel claws and beginning to harvest life. He approached a group of people in black, the black robes trembled, and his hands fluttered. Bright red blood flowed out, and screams came one after another, and the people in black were vulnerable in the hands of the people in black robes. Even after the first shot, they didn't even have time to pull the trigger, and they died under the latter's knife. Yang Qing could see clearly that under the black robe, two icy cold lights stretched out, which were two long knives. As soon as the man in black robe moved, the killing intent in the sky seemed to be like 1,000 horses, rushing forward, drowning his enemies, making people tremble with fear. After finishing a group of men in black, the men in black took back their long knives, and then walked slowly. Walking slowly and calmly all the way, everyone looked at his back. Laotian Longren's face was extremely difficult to see. He clearly noticed that the target of this black-robed man was himself, and he came towards him. The black-robed man came to the front of Laotian Longren, and his murderous aura stunned everyone in the audience. At this moment, there was a strange silence in the auction hall, making it difficult to even breathe. Yang Qing watched the man in black robe pass by in front of him. When this man passed by, he only felt as if he could smell the sea of blood. An invisible pressure made him almost paralyzed, and it was difficult for him to concentrate. This is a real strong man with a terrifying will, and his long knife has drunk the blood of countless people. For some reason, Yang Qing's always calm heart suddenly became agitated at this moment. Under the powerful force and iron-like will of the black-robed man, his heart became alive. I stand in front of you, and in the next second, I will cut off your head. Do you believe it? Under the black robe, a calm voice came out, containing a strong killing intent, forcing everyone in front of him. People's eyes are full of incredible. Does this person really dare to kill Tianlong people? Dare to attack the Tianlong people? Even Yang Qing was tense all over, and just beside him bit his lip, tears welled up in his eyes, he was completely shocked by the killing intent of the man in black robe. This person, really dare to start? Yang Qing was shocked and stared at the man in black robe. You dare! The Laotian Longren flashed panic and fear. But I'm not here for you today, so you can rest assured. The man in black robe said again, and the old dragon man breathed a sigh of relief. Fair bidding, the one with the highest price wins, whoever breaks the rules will die. The man in black robe said lightly. He made the rules, and no one in the audience dared to refute them. The Tianlong people who have the highest power in the world are completely shocked by the powerful strength at this moment, and they dare not even say a word. Under Yang Qing's eyes, a deep light flashed, and there seemed to be some enlightenment in his heart. But a group of chickens with no power, who gave you the right to be arrogant and domineering? Really, do you think you have everything? In the shocked and terrified eyes of the audience, the man in black robe sat beside the old Tianlong man and also sat beside Yang Qing. An invisible pressure made the space around Yang Qing seem to freeze. You are nothing but caged birds. Powerless and invisible. Poor bunch. After the black-robed man said this, he closed his mouth. His tone was calm, but Yang Qing clearly heard a contempt. Tianlong people, so despised. Ever. Yang Qing clenched his fists. At this moment, all kinds of enlightenment flashed in his heart. The Tianlong people are the descendants of the 20 kings. They have inherited the supreme rights of the 20 kings. But with the changes of the times, they have not inherited their supreme power. Perhaps this was the intentional guidance of the court later, which only allowed them to have power but not control it. Power and power cannot be obtained. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. To unity, differentiated their overall strength. But no matter what the situation is, the Tianlong people at the moment, they have no power to restrain the chicken, but they have developed a character of arrogance, and they still think that they are omnipotent. This is a very bad situation, because it is too easy to destroy them. The auction continues. The deep voice of the man in black robe came out through the black robe, and the host was sweating profusely. Yes, next, please continue to bid. The audience was silent, and the Tianlong people had a look of embarrassment on their faces, but they were really afraid of being killed, so they never dared to say a word. 360 million. Contrary to everyone's expectations, a voice sounded in the last row of seats in the auction hall. It was a quiet man with golden-rimmed glasses and a smile like a spring breeze on his face. There were 7 or 8 people sitting scattered around him, all with lazy expressions on their faces. It's the Glitter Pirates. The man with the golden glasses is Captain Golden Glitter Alec. The bounty is 150 million. They actually came to the Chambord Islands. Someone recognized these people and exclaimed. Yang Qing noticed that the man in black robe beside him was very calm, and he was not surprised that someone made a bid. 380 million. Another bid was made. It was a fat man with a sweaty face. He seemed to be nervous and kept wiping the sweat off his face with his hands. But no one really thought that he was afraid. In this case, daring to bid has proved his courage. 400 million. The man in black robe spoke calmly, and the fat man shook his head with disappointment on his face. 430 million. The quiet man spoke again, and a calm but exciting contest began against this devil fruit. But at this moment, in a situation that no one expected, a young and sharp voice sounded. I gave 600 million, and this devil fruit belongs to me. The audience was silent, looking around, and finally locked on the front row of the auction house. Chapter 6 1 billion devil fruit. As the line of sight wandered and finally locked, there was a hint of surprise on everyone's face. Child. It was unbelievable that the bidder turned out to be a child of about 5 years old. What does a 5-year-old know? Does he know what a devil fruit does? They feel very absurd, but they are strange in their hearts, because the bidder is a Tianlong person. The old Tianlongren, who had been embarrassed and had no light on his face, was even more dumbfounded. But Yang Qing, who was in everyone's eyes, was expressionless. Only little Jace could feel his brother's trembling hand as he took him, and his palms were full of fine beads of sweat. He is very nervous. How can you not be nervous? The moment Yang Qing exited his mouth, he clearly felt that 7 or 8 powerful wills locked on him and pressed heavily on him. In just an instant, he almost fainted. Fortunately, the infuriating qi that had been cultivated for several years turned around, making him a little more relaxed. But, don't forget who was sitting next to him. As soon as Yang Qing left his mouth, the bloody murderous aura of the man in black robe descended on him, crushing him to the point of being paralyzed. And he was keenly aware that the trace of killing intent on the man in black robe was undisguised. Will he be killed? It's terrifying to grab food in a pack of wolves and tigers. Interesting Tianlong people. Golden Flash Alec raised his right hand, cupped his eyes, then turned around and walked towards the gate of the auction. Captain, why are you leaving? Don't you want the devil fruit? It's just a devil fruit with unknown abilities. Don't worry, what's more important than this is that we have to leave soon. The sea soldiers are here. Alec waved his hand and strode away from here. The 7 or 8 people sitting in the last row looked at each other and quickly followed. Oh, Alec and the others are gone. What happened? The fat man who just made the bid wiped the sweat from his face, showing a look of doubt. But he didn't think much about it, just kept silent, and after a while, the audience forgot that there was such a person as him. You want this fruit? Under the black robe, he charged towards Yang Qing with a murderous voice. In a trance, Yang Qing seemed to hear the metal screeching of swords clashing, making him almost collapse. Fair bid, what you said. Yang Qing said fiercely through gritted teeth. Hey I made the rules, I have the final say. If I kill you now, this fruit still belongs to me. The man in black robe said contemptuously. Yang Qing's eyes narrowed, a huge sense of crisis came, and the right hand hidden behind moved. A simple and small flying knife appeared in his hand, flashing a dark light. Then try it. Starting with the flying knife, Yang Qing suddenly seemed to have changed. The incomparable concentration of energy and energy condensed together at this moment, turning into a dazzling sword intent, shining with blood and splendid light, in wanton publicity. Oh, it's interesting. The man in black robe put away his contempt and smiled. His heart was a little shocked. He actually felt a touch of crisis from the kid in front of him. How can that be? Does he have a powerful force in him? Fair bid, as I said, naturally abide by it. In the end, he snorted coldly. 650 million. This fruit, I'm going to fix it. The man in black robe said lightly. Compared with Tianlong people's financial resources. Ha ha. Yang Qing smiled. He felt the pressure on him disappear. His right hand trembled, and the small flying knife disappeared. 700 million. The man in black robe looked a little ugly, but he continued to make a bid. 730 million. At this moment, the atmosphere of the auction house has changed again. How outrageous is this? It is unbelievable that a fruit can be sold for such a high price. 750 million. Yang Qing was still laughing. The so-called money is nothing but a number to Tianlong people. Although his pocket money is limited, he is not worried about the lack of money in the slightest. 800 million. The man in black robe was almost screaming, and he didn't have much money left. Yang Qing's eyes narrowed. He didn't have Bailey anymore, but he wasn't worried. His lips moved slightly, and he moved towards the old Tianlongren next door through voice transmission. Truchi sound transmission. This is a very simple method, although it is not skilled, but fortunately, it has been barely mastered. Hey, Grandpa, lend me some money and let me take pictures of this devil fruit. You must know that this is no longer an ordinary bidding, but it means the face of our Tianlong people. If others know, today, Tianlong people are being sold by one person. The unknown man in black robe pressed down, but it would be a big joke. If you agree, you nod your head. If you disagree, you don't move. After the sound transmission, Yang Qing quietly waited for the action of the old Tianlongren, and he was very sure that the Tianlongren would agree. But what made him sweat was that the heavenly dragon man was hesitating. Damn it, I underestimated the fear of this old man. He was actually scared out of the shadows by the black-robed man. What a fool. Fortunately, in the end, after the complicated psychological struggle, the old Tianlong person nodded with a blushing neck and a thick neck. Young man, go fight with my anger, and suppress this bastard. This old man's money is all yours. After the Laotian Longren made a decision, he roared in his heart. 1 billion. You can leave now, this devil fruit, I'm going to make it. Yang Qing spoke softly, making the audience silent, like a slight whirlwind, and then became more and more violent, sweeping the audience, turning everyone into a rock sculpture. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Opened his mouth and couldn't close it. 1 billion, that's not rubbish, that's Bailey, what a huge fortune. The corners of the black-robed man's mouth trembled, and the anger soaring to the sky hit his heart. He was actually defeated by a 5-year-old boy who was only 5 years old when it came to money. What a joke. Killing intent. The violent killing intent swept Yang Qing, causing him to change color instantly. I'm going to kill you. Under the black robe, 2 icy cold lights flickered. The long knife is slowly unsheathed. Invisible pressure, violent killing intent, and the imminent crisis came to Yang Qing. Under this momentum mixed with killing intent and pressure, Yang Qing was like a small boat, and even his consciousness was dizzy, and he was almost in a coma. Unexpectedly, so powerful. Yang Qing was horrified, completely shocked by the strength of the black robe. He has been in the Tianlong people's palace since he was born, and he has never thought or seen that someone's strength and willpower will be so powerful. At this moment, he suddenly thought of how powerful the power contained in his body was in the animation he saw in his previous life. Shaking the earth and splitting the sky, the power of man can reach such a level. At this moment, dense footsteps sounded, and shouts came from outside. Quick, 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 surround this auction house and protect Lord Tianlong. It is unforgivable that someone dares to hurt Tianlong people. These murderers must be sentenced to death. The black-robed man's black robe trembled, and the two long knives were put in. Yang Qing could feel that under the black robe, there were two extremely cold eyes watching him, and the killing intent was not concealed at all. At this moment, the host pressed a switch in a panic, and a curtain dropped quickly, blocking everyone's eyes. Damn! The voice of the man in black robe came out, and he seemed very unwilling. Then, his figure flickered, and he left here quickly. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from Yang Qing's sight. Woo! Yang Qing softened, and his whole body was almost shivering. The pressure is unbelievable. Chapter 7 Overlord Color. The door of the auction slammed open, and the dark interior ushered in light, which immediately became bright. When everyone looked back, they saw a group of Navy soldiers at the gate, neatly holding their rifles, with serious expressions and neat military appearance. Click! A dull aura enveloped the scene, a crisp chewing sound came out, and a burly voice appeared at the door. Behind him, a white cloak was moving without wind, floating in the air, and the two black characters of justice were dazzling. Blind. The awe-inspiring aura made everyone dare not act rashly. This is a solemn person, and his body is full of strong aura. Scratch. He bit the food in his mouth again and stepped forward, the white cloak of justice swaying like the waves of the sea. Sea soldier, quick, catch the pirates and kill them for me. At this moment, the old Tianlongren completely released his anger, and slammed the crutches on the ground. Yang Qing glanced at him, smiled, and said nothing. Scratch. The incoming sea soldier continued to bite the food, ignoring the request of the old Tianlongren. He walked forward step by step, his eyes fixed on the front without blinking. Getting closer, Yang Qing looked at this person. This is a burly sailor. He is tall and straight, like a towering tree, with a serious national character face, with a sloppy beard around the corners of his mouth. He is biting a donut in his mouth at the moment, and a crisp voice is heard. Oh, 356 donuts. I broke yesterday's record again, haha. Lieutenant General, hurry up and catch those pirates who are threatening me. They are going to escape. Laotian Longren angrily walked to the front of the sea soldier and shouted loudly. Pirates. The Lieutenant General seemed to suddenly realize, there are pirates here. He glanced around the entire auction, showing a distressed look. I can't find it. What shall we do? Ha, there is a way. The Lieutenant General said to himself, and finally looked at the crowd, then closed his eyes gently. The next moment, under the shocked eyes of Yang Qing and everyone, he suddenly opened his eyes. Buzz. Just like the wild beasts opened their long sleeping eyes, they were furiously venting their anger and excitement. The astonishing momentum swept the audience like a violent storm. The boundless force of will was like the flame of the sun, which was unbearable. This was an extremely domineering aura. Under the impact of this aura, people with weak willpower instantly fell into a coma. Even people with strong willpower were also dazed and fell to the ground in the end. Overlord, domineering. The moment before he lost consciousness, Yang Qing reacted and said in shock, and it was at this time that he understood and remembered who he was vaguely familiar with. Hero Lieutenant General, Garp. At this moment, Garp still looks very young. His hair is black, his body is strong, his aura is as calm as a mountain, and his every move is full of strong tension. Looking at the people lying on the ground, including the Tianlong people who were lying on the ground under his feet, Garp scratched his head in distress. Oops, I didn't grasp the strength. Forget it, pick out the pirates and put them in jail. He waved his hand, and immediately a group of Marines rushed in and began to check the ground. Looking at the scene in the auction hall, the sea soldiers who came in were shocked and unable to calm down. and then looked at Garp with full admiration and admiration in his eyes. The hero Garp is incredibly powerful. You know, they just glanced at it, and they have already found a lot of pirates in this auction, and all of them have a high bounty, and the minimum is 30 million. When Yangqing woke up again, he had returned to his bedroom. His safety is given the highest priority, and his identity as a heavenly dragon allows him to enjoy the aloofness alone. After this incident, his life seems to have returned to peace, as always. But only Yangqing knew that he was already in a turbulent situation in his heart, and it was difficult to calm down. The man in the black robe, the golden glitter acrylic, and the hero lieutenant, Garp. Lying on the soft lawn, looking at the starry sky, Yangqing's eyes flickered, and his thoughts were full of thoughts. His mind flashed, every move of these people, every detail. The two swords of the black-robed man with great killing intent, the decision made by the acrylic. What shocked Yangqing the most was that Garp. When he opened his eyes and closed his eyes, he was like a tyrant who ripped apart the sky. With just one glance, relying on his strong mental strength and willpower, the entire audience fell into silence. What a terrifying person this is, he is simply too strong to defy the sky. Can people be so powerful? Yangqing couldn't calm down in his heart. He who lived in his previous life had never seen such a perverted human being. It is knowledge, and it is also in anime movies or novels, but seeing it in real life is another taste. This is a shocking visual experience, especially after experiencing it in person. It makes his heart churn. Dream. Power. Yangqing stretched out his palm, covering the entire starry sky. His eyes were shining, his heart was boiling, and the blood in his body began to flow, like the Yangtze and Yellow rivers. Blood, boiling, dreams, seems to have taken root in his body. On the second day, 2 items that Yangqing photographed in the auction were delivered to his yard. The first is the child in ragged clothes and eyes as bright as stars. I heard that he ate a devil fruit. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Has a strong strength. The bounty is full of 50 million, and what is even more frightening is that he is only 10 years old. This is an amazing genius, but somehow got caught. People in this world really don't know what talent is. So small, yet so powerful, he is clearly a genius with great talent. Yangqing's eyes flickered, and he was in admiration. The yard is very large, 500 or 600 square meters, but it is very empty. Apart from the trees and flowers, there is only Yangqing's room and himself. At this moment, there is one more person here. Ghost Dylan's. This is a legendary young man. No one knows his origin, no one knows his exact information, just like no one can catch his trace. He is elusive, looming, like a ghost, no matter day or night. He walks in the dark, and it is difficult for people to detect. He is a terrifying powerhouse. Although he doesn't take many shots, his hands are stained with blood. He does not distinguish between good and evil, and ignores right and wrong, because he kills good people and evil people. His eyes seem to be full of childish innocence. What was good to him was good, and what was bad was evil. Yangqing didn't know all the information about the child in front of him. Although he looked younger than the latter, in his eyes, this was just a child. So, after the two looked at each other in silence for a while, he spoke first. His questions were normal, yet strange. Do you have a dream? What is it? Dylan's eyes flashed, staring at Yangqing, but did not say a word. Survival or freedom, which do you want more? Yangqing asked again, but the latter still didn't say a word. What do you think about the dream of being the strongest in the world? PFF'd. Dylan's laughed, this time with disdain in his eyes. Chapter 8 Death _ Who in this world has no dreams? The first question, he answered, then the second. Freedom is more important than survival. Let me survive in a cage. What is the meaning of life? And finally the third. The strongest in the world. Are you kidding me? Do you think you are the pirate king? Dylan's answered Yangqing's question in a few words. He didn't have the fear and flinch when facing the Tianlong people. and his eyes were full of fearlessness. He thought that the Tianlong man who was younger than himself was just bored and asked to play, but he didn't expect that his few words actually caused the latter's contemplation, which made Dylan's fall into surprise. Who the hell is this little brat? A celestial dragon? Not like that. He doesn't have that stupid bubble on his head. After a while, Yangqing raised his head. Yes, what is the difference between people without dreams and salted fish? People have to be unrestrained when they live, with cages and bubbles everywhere. What's the point of existence? As for the strongest in the world, if you have a dream, why not choose the biggest and the strongest? He suddenly stared at Dylan's not far in front of him, and then threw a bunch of keys to the latter in the eyes of the latter's incomparable surprise. I'm a heavenly dragon, but I want to be the #1 in the world. Do you want to help me? His voice was casual, but the confidence and arrogance contained in it shook Dylan's heart violently at this moment, making him sluggish, and he didn't even realize that the key in his hand was to run towards the key to freedom. Your dream is to be #1 in the world, Dylan said blankly after a long time. Yes, the world's strongest, control the world in his own hands. Yangqing stretched out his palm and clenched it tightly. Should I say that you are arrogant, or are you ambitious? Dylan's eyes were complicated, and he even had the idea that the person in front of him was a lunatic. How can a normal person have such an unfulfilled dream? World #1. Dominate the world. Is it possible? Even if he is a god, he doesn't dare to say he controls the world, right? But why couldn't his heart stop beating after this little brat told his dream? Even the blood flow accelerated. Silently untied the handcuffs in his hands, Dylan was surprised to find that in a short period of time, he was convinced by a furry child younger than himself. But he was convinced, without a trace of dissatisfaction. I don't hesitate to give the key to my slave, and I don't worry about being killed by the slave at all. With such arrogant and crazy dreams, what's even more terrifying is that he turned out to be a heavenly dragon. Is it crazy, or is it really confident? But this kind of courage is really scary. He found that the curiosity and impulse in his heart burst out endlessly, making it difficult for him to restrain the excitement and trembling deep in his body. Should I call you Captain? Hello, my first crew member. Yangqing laughed. Where's the name of our pirate group? Dylan asked lightly. Then, call it Tilda. Yangqing was silent for a while, with a smile on his face. Death God. Reaper. It's a name full of killing intent, but it suits my ghost. Dylan nodded with a smile on his face. At the first meeting with Dylan, Yangqing established his own pirate group, and successfully had his first group member, a partner. His dream began to set sail, his heart that had been calm for a long time began to beat, and a majestic battle song would be played. Then, in Dylan's surprised eyes, he took his second auction item. $1 billion devil fruit. Dylan asked curiously. This devil fruit is indeed different from the general superhuman type. His whole body is shining with a golden luster. It seems that it is under the sun, absorbing a lot of energy, and it looks very good. Have you eaten? Yangqing asked Dylan casually while observing the fruit in front of him. I've eaten it, space-related fruit. Taste. Dylan nodded with a playful smile on his face. It's not bad. Space Department. Yangqing was surprised. This is quite a partial and powerful fruit. Unexpectedly, Dylan has eaten such a perverted thing. No wonder he is so powerful at a young age. Is it amazing? Yangqing asked. You will see it later. Dylan smiled, then pointed to the golden fruit in Yangqing's hand. Will you not eat it? 1 billion. Hey, I agree with the saying that the most powerful is always the human being, not the fruit. Yangqing smiled. So, at least 1 billion, I'll just eat it. Then, under the watchful eyes of Dylan, Yangqing took a bite. Card wipe. After a few mouthfuls, the huge golden fruit was bitten cleanly by Yangqing. How does it feel? What abilities do you have? Dylan asked curiously. Yangqing's face is a little bad. This fruit ability is really the opposite of his selling. With just one bite, the ability of the fruit automatically appeared in his mind, like instinct. Controlling the fruit can effectively control everything around you. There is only one sentence in the introduction, which sounds very cool and can control everything. But in fact, Yang Qingpit's father. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The discovery of this so-called control actually only allows him to thoroughly understand everything around him that he can touch. Look at it. Shaking his head helplessly, Yang Qing stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. Crack! A ripple appeared centered on him, instantly covering a 3-meter area centered on him, including him and Dylan's. Domain-type fruit, Dylan said in surprise. Not bad ability. No, Yang Qing shook his head in disappointment. In this circle, I can only know all your movements, but I have no attack ability. What do you mean? Dylan's was taken aback. That means, if you move, all your movements will appear in my mind, but in this field, I can't use the fruit ability to attack you. Yang Qing explained helplessly. To put it simply, this fruit ability is like an auxiliary type, which can help the owner to perfectly control everything around him, but it cannot play the role of attack. Dylan's was speechless, and then comforted Yang Qing. Don't be afraid, the ability of the fruit is to be developed. Maybe there will be new abilities in the future. You have just eaten it, and you haven't developed a little ability yet. Yang Qing had no choice but to nod. Controlling the fruit sounds very powerful. I hope I will have good abilities in the future. However, at present, it is like a chicken rib and can only play a supporting role. But as Yang Qing said before, the power of the fruit depends on the person who uses it. If Yang Qing continues to develop this fruit of control, there will eventually be a strong day. And is the auxiliary ability displayed by this rare field fruit really so unbearable? If you don't fight, no one will know. Chapter 9. Where there is a dream, there is freedom. A person without a goal is like a headless fly. He doesn't know where to fly. If he has a dream, he will have infinite power, and he will work hard to fight for it all his life. Yang Qing's eyes no longer have the indifference and confusion of the past. Instead, they are shining like a splendid starry sky, full of motivation and hope. The Tianlong man who slept until he woke up in the middle of the morning, and then lay lazily on a chair and read a book disappeared, and was replaced by a lunatic who was constantly exercising his physical and mental will. That's right, Yang Qing is like crazy, destroying and torturing his body. With him was another ghost, Dylan's. This young man with a bounty of 50 million yuan is full of explosive power in his thin body. But he never gave up on improving himself every day and every night. Your devil fruit ability should depend on the master's mental strength and physical strength. So you must strengthen the comprehensive cultivation of these two aspects, so that one day, you may discover its ability. Dylan's carefully observed Yang Qing after the ability. Analyze the road. Mental strength, physical strength. These are the two necessities of the devil fruit ability. Just like a car needs oil, it can't start without gasoline. So, Yang Qing started frantically training these two items. He felt that his energy was blown clean every day, but correspondingly, his strength, agility, and spiritual power were all rapidly improving. Under Dylan's guidance, he quickly became stronger. What surprised him even more was that with his cultivation, his true qi also cultivated faster. His strength is rapidly improving, and he can clearly feel it. Shaoli Fidao, he is also constantly cultivating, and has cultivated it to the realm of slight success at the fastest speed. In every dark night, Dylan's, who was sitting quietly and cultivating qi, could always feel an astonishing momentum passing by in an instant, and then a faint light flashed and disappeared instantly. He was extremely surprised. At that moment, Yang Qing, who was not strong, had a terrifying sword intent, as if it could tear apart everything in the world. It was incredibly powerful. He has a terrible secret and a mysterious power on him. Yang Qing was immediately filled with a sense of mystery in his eyes. This is an unusual Tianlong person. Ordinary Tianlong people, sitting and enjoying everything, blinded by power, how can they know what their dreams are like? Yang Qing, and still work so hard? This kid is insane. He cultivates his physical and mental strength during the day and his terrifying moves at night. Dylan secretly admires him. He is also a crazy person, but he can't do the sleepless training like Yangqing. Because Alice had reached the age of marriage, she was sent away from the Tianlong Palace by Yangqing and had not come for a week, so there were only the two of them in Nuoda's yard at the moment. The two have nothing to do all day long, and they are cultivating frantically. It is a strange thing for a Tianlong person not to enjoy happiness, but to enjoy his own rights. And the place where Yangqing is located is not very strict, so soon, this matter spread among the Tianlong people. Today, Yangqing and Dylan still got up early in the morning and started their frantic training. He already felt that he was about to move from a martial artist to a third-rate master, and the bottleneck had been faintly touched. He's going to go to the next stage, he's going to get stronger. However, just as their sweaty practice started, Yangqing was surprised to find that a group of men in black walked in quickly, followed by his parents. Father, mother. Yangqing stopped practicing and saluted his father and mother. Dylan's followed closely and bowed his head. Humph. Unexpectedly, his father Alpha Sheng snorted coldly this time. What are you doing? It's a shame for the Tianlong people. Stop your stupid behavior immediately. Alifa Sheng, Yangqing's mother, stood by, looking at him worriedly. What? Yangqing wondered, what stupid behavior? As a noble Tianlong person, a nobleman in the world, and a king among human beings, you actually sacrifice your life to be like a mortal and go to practice hard. Isn't that stupid? Stop it, Alpha Sheng roared. Yangqing understood. It turned out that in his father's eyes, cultivating to become stronger was a shameful act and a stupid act. A flame rose up in his heart, but his eyes were as calm as lake water. Being stronger is my dream and I will not give up. What? Dreams? You actually talk about dreams with those rude monkey-like pirates. You are simply stupid. You have tarnished your identity as a dragonborn. Alpha Saint was furious. Son, stop cultivating and live a peaceful life. Alpha persuaded worriedly. Facing his father's anger, Yangqing was silent for a while, and finally a smile appeared on his face. Cultivation. Does becoming stronger tarnish the identity of the Tianlong people? Yangqing stared at the man with bubbles in front of him, who looked to the extreme. He was his father. Shouldn't I have my own dreams as a Tianlong person? If you think so, then I can only say that the stupid person is you. Yangqing's face was full of ridicule and disdain. How bold! Alpha roared and slapped him. Dead space. Crack. The snap of his fingers sounded, and an invisible ripple spread rapidly. In Alpha's surprised eyes, a light blue hood enveloped everyone present. Yangqing's eyes were calm and flashed with ease. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Slapped his father. Then, he spoke softly. The Tianlong people who are kept here in captivity are just birds in a cage. You have no dreams, no goals, you live in fear every day, like Walking Dead, you dare not think what you think, you can't do what you do, you are just immersed in a group of people without resistance. In the pleasure brought by the slaves of the power. You feel so strong and invincible. Oh it's a pity, those are all hallucinations. Actually, you have nothing but those illusory rights. Poor bunch. In the Alpha in Yangqing's field, every move of the body is clearly observed. The expression on his face changed from surprise, to the complexity just now, to the calm and gratification now, making Yangqing seem to understand something. It turns out that the water of the Tianlong people is so deep. If Yangqing realized something, then he still looked at Alpha. After being stunned for a while, Alpha slapped him again. Stupid. You are a noble Tianlong person, you don't have to care about your dreams or anything, just stay with me, and don't allow any changes. Alpha roared loudly. Otherwise, I'll kick you out immediately. Alpha yelled, worried. Yangqing's eyes flashed, and then he spoke calmly. I'll go out, a cage that can't hold a strong eagle. Those who have dreams are always free. I don't care about the identity of Tianlong people. Alpha was stunned for a moment, then turned around in anger. He tossed his sleeves and shouted, "It's just so stupid. It's unreasonable. It's unreasonable." Then, like the wind, he left here with his guards. Looking at the parents who were leaving, Yang Qing's eyes flickered. Your father is a little strange. He didn't let you cultivate to protect you. Is that what he meant? As an outsider, Dylan saw it very clearly. Yang Qing nodded, his eyes shining brightly. The sea is free, dreams are free, and so am I. What I want to do, I must do it, and I must do it. His voice was sonorous and powerful, as hard as iron, and at the same time, a sharp and condensed sword intent rose into the sky. The sword intent has been condensed to the limit. Dylan felt this mood, and his heart kept beating with excitement. Yes, it was it. Every night, people were frightened. Terrifying and exhilarating, but unfortunately, in the end, the spatula didn't mean anything and slowly dissipated. The mighty Yang Qing has become that ordinary weak child again. Dylan's was a little disappointed, but didn't show it. The days are not far away from us. Looking at the sky, Yang Qing sighed softly. There, countless bubbles are lifted into the sky and then burst, like pirates who are constantly running towards the great route with dreams. Chapter 10 Yang Qing's father, Alpha Shang, has not appeared since that day, but faintly, he felt that because his behavior was different from other people's behavior, some people were unhappy, and there were undercurrents surging. For example, his yard was surrounded by a group of inexplicable men in black and watched. And no matter what he did, he would faintly feel a pair of eyes staring at him behind him. What a bad feeling. A look of disgust appeared on his face, and the feeling of losing his freedom made him very angry, but there was nothing he could do. Cultivation. Only by continuous practice can you control your own destiny. For a whole year, Yang Qing and Dylan's have been cultivating continuously. Every day and night around his yard, there are people in black who are guarding it. Yang Qing has no expression on his face, but he feels in his heart. Suffocated fire. Freedom. Finally, on a certain night, the moon and stars were sparse, and in the Luxi courthouse full of fragrance of flowers and plants, a touch of astonishing momentum was fleeting, with a dazzling sword intent across the sky, like a lightning strike. All the men in black who were guarding the periphery were shocked. This powerful sword intent nakedly showed the powerful power of the master inside. This power is something that even they cannot resist. A Tianlong person actually possesses such power, and what is even more terrifying is that he is only a 6-year-old child. Someone quietly left and reported the matter to the higher-ups. You're even stronger. Dylan looked at Yang Qing with bright eyes and said in admiration. That knife is like bright fireworks. The perfection of life and the splendid life are all in it. Yes, I've improved. After a year of crazy training, Yang Qing finally entered the realm of a third-rate master. His physical fitness, spirit, and will have all made great progress. Although his body is still only a child, he is very strong, like a ferocious little tiger, and his body is full of amazing blood. Days passed so peacefully for a few days. Yang Qing consolidated his own strength and completely mastered his suddenly increased infuriating energy. At this moment, when he stepped down, a footprint as deep as 1 inch could be abruptly stepped on the hard granite floor. It's amazing, after the strength is strong, when you step down, the ferocious force will smash the floor and break it into pieces. You only stepped on a footprint. The degree of control over the power is incredible. Dylan marveled. Yang Qing just laughed, the magic of true anger. He couldn't tell Dylan completely. Just today, a figure rushed in a hurry, was blocked by the man in black, and made a noise with the ladder. Yang Qing frowned and walked out, with Dylan following closely. Let me in, I have something important to look for, His Royal Highness Lucifer. The visitor shouted loudly. It was a young man with a very anxious face. No one is allowed to approach here. Leave immediately. The man in black looked indifferent and stretched out his hand to block. Let me in. I have something important to do. The young man was eager to rush in, but was pushed out unceremoniously and sat on the ground. What happened? At this moment, Yang Qing walked out with a flat face. The man in black's expression changed greatly, and then he fell to his knees, his head deeply touching the ground. The young man was a little stunned, but he stood there in a daze. Bold, don't kneel down and salute, do you want to die? A man in black was furious and roared loudly. Yang Qing waved his hand and looked at the man in black kneeling on the ground, a cold flash in his eyes. This year, he hasn't been out of the yard, but that doesn't mean he doesn't know what these men in black are doing. They are monitoring themselves every day. What they have done, every move, and even when they go to the toilet are recorded in detail by these people and reported to them. For a year, I had no privacy or freedom at all, as if I was living in a cage. Who are you? What's the matter with me? Yang Qing looked at the young man and asked lightly. The innate majesty of the Tianlong people obviously shocked this young man. The young man was nervous for a while, and he was speechless. I'm Alice's younger brother. My sister has an accident. After the boy finished speaking, his eyes reddened and he cried, Sir, please save my sister, she is about to be killed. Now. The teenager knelt down, but the meaning was completely different from those of the men in black. They knelt down for power, but the teenager knelt down for love for their relatives. Is something wrong with Alice? Yang Qing was stunned for a moment, then his eyes became colder and colder. At this moment, Dylan's, who was standing beside him, clearly felt an icy chill, like a cold winter in the 12th moon. My sister was taken away by the Tianlong people. Woo-hoo, the boy cried. Tianlong people. Yang Qing narrowed his eyes and said nothing. Please, save my sister. The sister said that only you can save her, please save her. The boy cried and begged. Get up and lead the way. Yang Qing said calmly, the chills in his eyes burst out from time to time. I want to see who can't get along with me and dare to bully Alice. Alice took care of him for a long time, and it can be said that the two have a deep relationship. This feeling even surpassed his parents. After all, the time his parents spent with him could be counted. Okay. The young man was overjoyed, and hurriedly got up and ran forward to lead the way. Seeing this scene, the faces of the people in black changed greatly. They immediately got up and stopped in front of Yang Qing. I'm sorry, Your Highness Lucifer, you can't go out at will. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. A man in black said tremblingly. It takes great courage and a great price to say such words to a Tianlong man. Oh, you have the right to imprison my freedom. Yang Qing laughed mockingly, with a trace of disdain on the corner of his mouth. Who gave you the courage to say this? Do you know the cost of saying that? You definitely don't want to pay it. Kill him, Dylan's. The man in black who opened his mouth changed color, and panic and regret flashed in his eyes. Just as he was about to open his mouth to beg for mercy, but he didn't want a black light flashing in front of him, his eyes widened instantly, and then he fell down softly. Dead. The eyes of the other people in black were full of fear. They saw with their own eyes that the young man behind Tianlongren had a cruel smile on the corner of his mouth after Yang Qing said those words, and then the figure was only slightly blurred. People die. Quick, so quick. Weird, unimaginably weird. How did he die? Of His Majesty Lucifer be so powerful? You must know that they are the guards specially responsible for protecting the Tianlong people, and they are also powerful, no worse than the elite sea soldiers. But that man was just one move, and he killed the elite guards in one move. Yang Qing walked out of the yard slowly, and no one in the surrounding black cloth dared to move, all of them were trembling. This is the invincible aura brought by the powerful strength and energy, shocking everyone. Chapter 11 Anger is like a sea, drowning everything. The weather is sunny, and the air is filled with the faint smell of seawater, which makes people feel calm. But the atmosphere around at the moment made everyone nervous, and the innate power of Tianlong people made everyone feel suffocated. And a powerful and daring Tianlong man, the aura formed around him is even more terrifying. Yang Qing took this step by step, With Dylan's behind him, his expression was calm, but his eyes were gloomy, and he was surrounded by a cold aura, which made everyone tremble and tremble. Soon, he left here. Only at this moment did the people in black look at each other, only to realize that their backs were already soaking wet, and that kind of aura made it difficult for them to breathe. It's terrifying. No Tianlong person has such a terrifying aura. He is absolutely extraordinary. Where is Alice? Yang Qing walked forward, the young man in front, running and leading the way. Quick, my sister is not far away. They are going to bring her to the palace of the Tianlong people. The young man did not have the strength of Yang Qing and ran out of breath. Well, I'll rescue your sister. Yang Qing nodded with a firm tone. On the street not far from Yang Qing, a heavy and depressing atmosphere filled the air. On both sides of the street were ordinary people kneeling on the ground. Everyone bowed their heads deeply, and their faces were full of anger, fear and helplessness. Please, let me go. I don't want to go to the palace of the dragon people. The lady with the weeping begged. To have you as the 37th wife of my lord is an honor that you will never get in your life. You dare to resist. An angry voice sounded. You must go back with my lord, and follow me obediently. The voice was full of arrogance and disdain, as if there was no one more powerful than him in the world. In the center of the street, a group of men in black, a Tianlong man with a bubble and a gorgeous dress, and a woman occupied the entire street. The Tianlong man walked in front, and the woman was dragged forward by the man in black, leaving a long mark on the ground. Leave Alice alone, please, we're getting married next month. A man rushed up, then knelt down at the dragon's feet, begging. Oh, you said he wanted to marry you. The Tianlong man stopped walking, and his face instantly turned gloomy. Immediately afterwards, he stretched out his hand and spread it out in front of the rear guard. Sir, your gun. With a flattering smile, a man in black handed a black revolver. I want you to die. The Tianlong man turned his gun and placed it on the man's forehead. The man was stunned for a moment, and stopped his pleading voice. Alice even cried loudly, shouting, no, in pain. The people kneeling on both sides of the street clenched their fists tightly, their faces were full of anger, and they bit their lips. Don't kill him. Please, I'll marry you, don't kill him. Alice pleaded in pain, tears streaming down uncontrollably. No, I don't want you to marry him. We are going to get married next month. We also have 2 lovely sons and daughters, we want to be together happily, you must not marry him. The man responded and shouted loudly road. His voice was full of hope, but there was also a hint of pain and despair. This desolate sound shocked the people kneeling around, and their faces became even more angry, but some people had calmed down, like a pool of stagnant water. Oh, the Tianlong man pressed the muzzle of the gun against the man's forehead. Click. The sound of the loading was crisp and clear, and the man's whole body trembled. Then he closed his eyes suddenly, 2 lines of tears flowed down, and he roared loudly. It's impossible to marry you, you bastard. The dragon man narrowed his eyes, then pulled the trigger sharply. Bang! Heavy gunshots rang out, and the bubbles floating over the Shambold Islands shattered with a bang. In Alice's painful cry, the man fell down with an unwilling face. His dead eyes were full of despair and anger, pouring out his emotions during his lifetime. The dark red blood flowed out, dyeing the ground red, and a faint smell of blood came out. A gunshot made everyone present tremble, and the kneeling people lowered their heads even lower. In this world, no one can save you, you are desperate. The Tianlongren said this indifferently, tapping Alice's heart. Woo, Eric! Alice cried in pain, and then she was dragged forward like a stone by the man in black. The beautiful dress was frayed, revealing her big, clean legs, and then it was stained with dust, and finally the skin was frayed and blood oozing. Insensitive, everyone clenched their fists fiercely, and felt a heart beating constantly. It was blood, pity, unwillingness, anger, and a silent accusation against the bully in power. The atmosphere was quiet, only a painful female voice was sobbing in a low voice, so desperate, so heart-wrenching. Da da da. Just then, a series of footsteps sounded. People trembled in their hearts, looked up at the street from the corner of their eyes, and shrank in their hearts. Don't come here, you will be killed. People shouted in their hearts. But the words in his heart were obviously not heard by the person coming, and the footsteps were getting closer and closer. It was a 15 or 16-year-old boy. When he came here, he first swept away, and then his face changed greatly. Eric, sister. The person who came was Alice's younger brother. He saw Eric lying on the ground was stained red with blood, and he saw his sister's painful model. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. In this way, my heart is trembling, and my blood is boiling. Azuo. Alice hugged her brother, then reacted and pushed him away again. Go away, get out of here quickly. Card. The crisp sound of the loading sounded, and everyone trembled again. In that match, Tianlongman's guns were aimed at people once, and this time, it was Alice's younger brother, Yasuo. Don't! Alice shouted piercingly. Don't hurt him. Yasuo looked fearless, stubbornly stared at the Tianlong people, his eyes were full of anger. I only need you. I don't. Tianlongren said indifferently, pulling the trigger with his right hand. Everyone closed their eyes, unable to bear to see the tragic thing happen again. Alice let out a painful roar, shaking the hearts of everyone present. Suddenly, everyone felt a breeze blowing. It was very gentle, but very violent. In a flash, like an electric light. The Tianlongren cried out in pain, and the gun in his hand fell to the ground. Da 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 da. The footsteps sounded, but this time it was so slow, pressing on everyone's hearts. Here comes again. Moreover, this time, the people who arrived hurt the Tianlong people, and they saw a drop of blood dripping on the ground and splashing blood. Who is it? Really arrogant and domineering. I really want to kill you. The ironic voice with killing intent came out, and everyone's heart trembled fiercely. Lucifer. Alice cried out in pain, her voice full of sadness and despair. Chapter 12. The Sword. The person who came was Yang Qing, and behind him stood the expressionless Dillons, like a ghost from hell. Yang Qing's face was also calm, but in the depths of his eyes, the icy cold could freeze everything. He walked to Alice step by step, then bent down. Holding the tears and embarrassed cheeks with both hands, he spoke softly. Don't worry, don't be afraid, I'm here. I'm here. This soft sound made Alice's whole body tremble in pain. She hugged Yang Qing in pain, and then burst into tears. He killed Eric, woohoo, he killed Eric. Help me, help me, help me. Alice cried out in pain, her voice full of helplessness and desolation. Yang Qing's whole body trembled, and then he gently stretched out his hands and hugged the poor woman tightly. His eyes were filled with murderous intent at this moment. The cold wind blows, and the killing intent is now. I will kill him. These words were very light, but it changed the expressions of everyone present. Dylan's face had a hint of surprise. That day, the dragon man squinted his eyes and said nothing, but the man in black behind him was blank. Angry face. Stinky boy, you are so brave. Have the milk been weaned? Just rant here. I'll kill you first. The Tianlongren quietly covered the wound on his right hand. Unexpectedly, he was not hysterical and crazy, nor was he particularly angry, but his right hand trembled, stopping the noise of the guards behind him. You are that kid from the Alpha family. Sure enough, it is a powerful Tianlong person. Yang Qing narrowed his eyes, the cold light flickered, and he remained silent. In his eyes, the person in front of him was dead, and he would no longer have his tomorrow. And the opening of the dragon man also surprised everyone present. This 6 or 7-year-old child, this amazing child, is actually a heavenly dragon. But what about his bubbles? The faces of the people in black changed even more, with fear in their eyes, and no longer dared to speak indiscriminately. Unfortunately, powerful people die quickly, especially among people like us. My name is Morio, and I am a victim. This sentence made Yang Qing's eyes flash, and he realized something. 10 years ago, I was as powerful as you and had passionate dreams. The me back then was the same as you are now. It's a pity that we are not destined to be strong. That's how life is, to gain one thing you lose another. Morio laughed at himself, and then aimed the gun at Yang Qing. Young man, you are too ostentatious. The result is death. Among the Tianlong people, there is no need for someone like you. Morio's tone changed, and his words were full of killing intent. Click. The gun was loaded, and there was an aura of death locked on Yang Qing. Yang Qing narrowed his eyes, and a mocking and disdainful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Stupid. Regarding Morio's muzzle, he only spit out these 2 words coldly, and then his right hand trembled, and a simple and dark flying knife appeared. Dylan's eyes narrowed, and he stared at the flying knife in Yang Qing's hand. It is incredible that such a powerful sword intent and power can be contained in such a small flying knife. At this moment, Morio pulled the trigger in his hand fiercely, and his muzzle accurately pointed at Yang Qing's forehead. If this shot was fired, Yang Qing would definitely die. Dead space. Crack. The sound of snapping fingers appeared, and Yang Qing's right hand trembled slightly. A flash of electric light sparked everyone's emotions. In Dylan's eyes, this knife is so amazing, brilliant, and dazzling. It is like a meteor in the sky. It is short-lived, but it burns a lifetime of flames. It is like the sun in the sky, powerful and destructive, capable of destroying everything. This is a mortal attack after the spirit and energy are extremely condensed. No one can escape this knife. It has no flaws, because the enemy in front of it will definitely be full of flaws. The knife of Shaoli Fidao is a knife of anger, a knife of justice, a knife of chivalry, a person's whole body spirit, morality, and strength, all fused together to issue an invincible knife. This knife is terrible and irresistible. As long as it is issued, his enemies will surely usher in death. There seemed to be a jingle in the air, which was short-lived. Then, everyone was horrified to find that the Tianlong man who shot was full of fear and despair. There was a small flying knife on his neck, which was very inconspicuous. But it has taken away his life and light. Dragon people, dead. The audience was calm. The men in black swallowed their saliva and dared not speak. They felt their mouths were dry and wanted to drink water. But he was enveloped by an invisible aura, and he couldn't even move. Dylan's blinked, a little shocked. You killed him. I said I want to kill him. Yang Qing nodded, lifted Alice up, wiped the tears from her cheeks. Don't be afraid, it's over. When Dylan's heard this, the corners of his mouth trembled and he was speechless. Those are the heavenly dragons, the most noble race in the world, the heavenly dragons who can mobilize the naval generals and launch a demon-slaying order. You just killed him like this. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Is it over? Everyone knows that this matter has just begun, and a huge storm is bound to break out in the near future. Stepping over Morio's corpse, Yang Qing looked at the group of timid men in black and smiled. Go back with his body and tell his family, next time I will kill him. Also kill. The people in black are about to faint. Who is this Nima? Are you sure he's a celestial dragon? Didn't the pirates in the skin of Tianlong come here to kill? Yang Qing brought Alice and Yasuo to his manor and settled them down. Trouble. Dylan's watched Yang Qing walk out of the room, touched his nose and walked over. Oh, what's the trouble? Yang Qing wondered. I don't believe you don't know. Dylan's was a little excited. The Tianlong people already have the highest power in the world, and some people can't make you more powerful. You have already attracted the attention of some people. This is enough trouble. What's even more terrifying is that you are now killing the Tianlong people and killing your own clan. You will be rejected by the Tianlong people. Oh, that's not right. You can be a pirate. Yang Qing smiled and didn't care. I remember you said before that you want to slowly advance this plan. This time, it doesn't look like you are advancing slowly. Dylan's roared in a low voice. Are you afraid? Yang Qing smiled, staring at Dylan's. The end, helplessly relieved, spread out his hands and said helplessly, "Forget it, you are the captain, you have the final say, but remember, we are only 2 young soldiers, and if we die, the regiment will be destroyed." Ha ha, Yang Qing smiled. You're still laughing. Dylan's got angry. What attitude, this man. Ha ha, Yang Qing still laughed. It's unreasonable. Dylan's walked away, too lazy to pay attention to Yang Qing. Chapter 13 Rainstorm. After Dylan's left, the smile on Yang Qing's face disappeared, replaced by a serious and solemn expression. Cultivating to improve one's own strength. This is nothing, as long as you stop it, and don't let him practice. The Tianlong people, including the mysterious person, can tolerate it. This is harmless, after all, it is still under control. Grand prize, top combat power, is the strong so easy? What's more, Yang Qing is still a Tianlong person who lives in comfort every day, with the most powerful power in the world. What else does he lack? However, killing the same clan is not so simple. In any clan, killing the same clan is unforgivable, ranging from expulsion from the clan, to severe cases, it may even be punished with death. Yang Qing is very clear, so his heart is very heavy. But this action was not without thought. His mind is very clear, especially after eating the fruit of control, he can feel his logic more, and his thinking about problems is much stronger than before. It seems that the feint can control the occurrence of things. This allows him to stay calm and sit here, not worry. Morio's behavior is testing me. It's testing my strength, courage. As Morio himself said, he is a victim. Killing him is the best way. Just, take some risks. Yang Qing looked at the sky, his eyes were shining, and he stretched out his hand, as if he wanted to hold the whole sky in his hand. If you want to test me, then I will go with the flow and get the freedom I want. Kill me, hee, that's impossible. He is very confident and believes that the development of everything will not be out of his control, and he has a clear plan for the future. Sure enough, soon, Alpha came to his yard again with a group of men in black with ugly faces. Do you know what you're doing? Alpha growled. I know. Yang Qing's tone was indifferent. Kill Morio, and your mother, and I can't protect you. Alpha was heavy and angry. You stop your stupid behavior, and we will fight for you. Yang Qing's eyes flashed, but he didn't say anything. Alpha leaves here very quickly. He is not a stupid draconian. On the contrary, this is a very smart talent. Yang Qingsheng is in this group, and he naturally knows that this group is not as arrogant as it appears in the animation, but without any strength. As the descendants of the 20 kings, the celestial dragons have their own unique talents. Although for some reason, most people in their ethnic group are not limited in strength, their brains are absolutely fine. He faintly felt that there was a huge secret hidden in this group. Not long after that, Yang Qing felt that there was another group of guards outside his yard. These people are strange and not many in number, but their eyes are indifferent, and they possess great power. Completely different from those men in black, this is a group of real powerhouses. CP0, Dylan said solemnly. He just disappeared and reappeared to find out the identities of these people. But this group of people did not move, just stood outside the door with indifference. Yang Qing hadn't been out of the yard in the past few days, and was still exercising himself. Everything seemed very calm. Dylan's is in and out every day. He is the fruit of the space system, his whereabouts are ethereal, and no one can catch him. Every time he went in and out, Yang Qing could see that his expression would be heavy. Finally, on this day, a group of men in black, surrounded by a middle-aged Tianlong man wearing a bubble, came to his courtyard, along with Yang Qing's parents. Is it you who killed Morio? The middle-aged Tianlong man who arrived asked coldly, with a touch of pain and sadness deep in his eyes. That's right, Yang Qing simply admitted. Alpha's eyes trembled, and he glanced at Yang Qing without saying a word. The atmosphere was heavy and depressing, and everyone present fell silent. They are all Tianlong people, and there is no saying that they use energy to suppress each other. The mediation of contradictions between them has to go through other channels. I won't let you go, you will regret your choice. After the middle-aged Tianlongren said this, he made no secret of his killing intent, and then he looked at Alpha. Your son, it's really impressive envy, it's a pity, it won't last long. Alpha's eyes were indifferent and he smiled disdainfully. Don't worry, Your Excellency. After a short meeting, Yang Qing's life returned to calm again. But everyone knows that this is just the calm before the storm, and the storm will not be long. Have you killed a celestial dragon of the same clan? With only a mere 6 years of age, he possesses amazing strength. Hee, what an amazing Tianlong person. In a courtyard, an old man smiled and said, and behind him stood a group of Tianlong people, some old people and middle-aged people, all standing there quietly. Tell me, what is the crime for killing one's own family? This kind of scum with no kinship is sure to die. A figure said ruthlessly, it was Morio's father. Hee, Monet. The old man smiled, then he looked at the other man. Alpha, what do you think should be done? He is your son. Listen to your lord, Alpha said expressionlessly. The old man smiled again, then glanced at all the Tianlong people present, closed his eyes, and then slowly said, then, let's expel my clan. Alpha's eyes flashed, and Monet, Morio's father, saw a gleam in his eyes. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Killing intent. The old man then announced the end of the meeting, and everyone slowly left the venue. Monet and Alpha walked at the back. When the two walked out of the courtyard, they glanced at each other. Both of them were expressionless and said nothing, then turned their heads and left. The atmosphere was very stiff. Dragon people with dreams, hee, it's really enviable. If you want to struggle, why not give you away? Like that kid. Go on. The old man looked at the two photos in his hands, and there was a touch of hope and expectation in his eyes. After this secret meeting, Yang Qing also noticed a change in the atmosphere. Around his courtyard, there was no more ear monitoring by the man in black, and even the CP0 disappeared. But this did not make Yang Qing's complexion better, and Dylan's looked even more solemn. The calm is over, and the storm is coming. Sure enough, that afternoon, Alpha came here with a team of men in black. This time his expression was very complicated, with reluctance, shame, and a little bit of concern. Only then did Yang Qing realize that his seemingly stupid father was definitely not stupid. On the contrary, he was very wise. This time, there was also his younger brother, Jace, who was teary-eyed, looking at Yang Qing and was about to cry. It seems that the results of the internal processing of the Tianlong people have come out. Yang Qing's expression was very calm, he had already guessed the result. Tomorrow, you can leave here, Alpha said lightly, and the father and son didn't say much. After that, Alpha left with someone, leaving behind a tearful Jace and his mother. Sure enough, as expected by Yang Qing, there was a hint of relief in his eyes, and the tension in his entire body also loosened. Dylan's is also relieved. After all, it is too fragile for the two of them to fight against the Tianlong people now. Chapter 14. Give me 10 seconds. The attitude of the Tianlong people did not exceed Yang Qing's expectations. They would not kill Yang Qing, because Yang Qing firmly believed that the Tianlong people who were trapped in the cage still had a heart that yearned for freedom. They yearned for great power, more than just this nihilistic power, and to restore the age of the 20 kings. Yang Qing is very clear about this. He controls everything, and he has already judged this from all kinds of clues. Therefore, he was not worried that he would be killed. Because they dare not, there are people who are unwilling to escape from the bird cage, and naturally there are also people who hope that a bird in the cage escapes and guides them. And Yang Qing was the one who was arranged by them to test escape from the birdcage. Boom! There was a deafening roar from the sky that had always been sunny, and jade beads the size of beans floated down from the sky, splashing huge drops of water when they fell to the ground. Yang Qing looked at the rain outside the room with inexplicable eyes. Today, he is leaving here, the sky is raining heavily, and the weather is really not good. Crack. Holding up the umbrella, Yang Qing stepped in the rain, with Dylan's following closely, with an indifferent expression. The two walked slowly, walking step by step, driving the raindrops on the ground. From today onwards, you and I are brothers, have a glass of wine and drink it on the boat later. Yang Qing said softly, having walked out of the courtyard where he had lived for 5 years. He looked back, turned his head, no longer nostalgic. Okay. Dylan's eyes flickered, and Yang Qing could clearly sense the excitement of the person behind him. Well, let's go, get out of here. Freedom is calling us, and dreams are waiting ahead. Yang Qing set off, holding an umbrella and walking in the rainstorm. The atmosphere of the two was silent, and they walked forward without saying a word. No one came to see him off, and no one came to escort him. It seemed that Yang Qing had been abandoned by the nobles of the world. There were very few people on the street, and it seemed very quiet. Yang Qing didn't care, he just moved on. Suddenly, Yang Qing looked at a corner of the street, where an elderly Tianlong man with a bubble was standing quietly, and behind him stood an indifferent man in black. Seeing Yang Qing looking at him, the old Tianlong person gave a friendly smile and nodded. Yang Qing also smiled. This Tianlong Ren was the Tianlong Ren who was almost killed in the auction that day, and he seemed to still owe him a huge amount of bailey, but unfortunately, it seemed that there was no way to pay it back. The two made eye contact, and Yang Qing kept walking, from slow to fast, and quickly left here. Soon, he had left the area of the Tianlong people and arrived at the place where the people were. The number of people here has obviously increased, and it seems to be a bit lively. Even in a heavy rainstorm, these ordinary people can't stop their passion. They smile and do their own business. Involuntarily, Yang Qing slowed down his steps and looked at everything here curiously. Dylan's also slowed down, his expression was very indifferent, and his eyes looked around vigilantly. In the Tianlongren area, in a courtyard. Where have they been? A deep, murderous voice came out. Lanka Street, Chambord. A man in black reported in a low voice. Okay. A sinister smile appeared on the face of the man before, showing a frantic expression. It was Monet, give me a hand and kill him. Yes. The man in black quickly stepped back, then took out the phone bug, notify everyone, take action. With an order, an unpredictable conspiracy unfolded. At the same moment, Dylan's expression changed, and there was a chill in his eyes. He pulled Yang Qing. Go. What? Yang Qing was stunned, and the next moment he followed Dylan's and left here quickly. Just as the two quickly walked out of the distance of about 100 meters, Dylan's originally cold face suddenly changed greatly. He pushed Yang Qing away and shouted loudly, get down. Bang. Dirons. He wasn't injured, there was no pain in his body, and then he suddenly reacted in the next second, shouting heart-rending. He looked around, but couldn't find Dylan's, who disappeared. Stop shouting, run. At this moment, Dylan's voice came. Yang Qing found Dylan's 10 meters in front of the left, and a touch of excitement surfaced. Suddenly, a cold chill came from his forehead, his face changed, he was locked, it was a gun. Sniper rifle. Dead space. With the sound of his fingers snapping, a circle of blue ripples swept out and enveloped Yang Qing within a range of 3 meters. In an instant, he knew everything here like the back of the hand. Bang! The muffled and heavy gunshot sounded again. Yang Qing's eyes flashed with splendid brilliance, his head tilted slightly, and a huge sound came out, and the powerful sniper rifle punched a big hole in the wall behind. How is that possible? The man in black who was hiding in the dark held up a sniper rifle. He couldn't believe that someone could escape the lock of this new sniper rifle. And at the moment when he was shocked, a cold light shot towards him, as fast as electric light. This is the radiance of life, the radiance of spiritual brilliance. Romantic swordsman. With a soft sound of PFF, the sniper's eyes flashed inconceivable, the flying knife on his neck had no hilt, and fell down softly. Let's go. Dylan's had already arrived at Yang Qing's side at this time, and shouted in a low voice without hesitation. In a short period of time, a large number of people in black have gathered on the street. They are scattered but very large. At a glance, there are 50 or 60 people, each of them is elite, with black shiny guns in their hands. Bang, bang, bang. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Intensive gunshots began to sound, hitting Yongqing and Dylan's side by side one after another, bringing up bursts of smoke. The two looked dignified and ran fast side by side. Chase. Kill them. Kill them, Lord Rabu will be rewarded. The men in black at the rear were chasing after them. Yongqing and Dylan's looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They knew that this was the revenge of the Tianlong people. I thought I would be a little more afraid, but I didn't expect that they would start chasing and killing them so frantically before they left the Chambord archipelago. Simply, so easy. Yongqing was completely speechless. It's all your good deeds. Dylan's glared at Yongqing. How do I get out of here now? Yongqing shrugged and kept running, tilting his head from time to time, or jumping to avoid the bullets behind him. The ship is in Donggang, we have to go there as soon as possible. Dylan said quickly. What about the people behind? Yongqing pouted. Quickly solve it, and then leave immediately. There will be more and more people, so don't entangle too much. Dylan said without hesitation. I can only deal with one at a time, I can only rely on you. Yongqing rolled his eyes. You are the uncle. Dylan's was speechless, then turned around and waved his hand. You go first. They handed it over to me. A light flashed in Yongqing's eyes, and the powerful pirate with a bounty of 50 million was finally able to see what his strength was. Dylan's strength has been a mystery ever since we met. What kind of strength does this genius boy who holds the fruit of space have? Give me 10 seconds. A confident and cold voice came out, bringing a burst of coolness. Dylan's turned around and stood still, a cruel light flashing in his eyes. The feast of slaughter is about to unfold, and the ghosts will dance. Chapter 15 6 Forms. The torrential rain poured, and the thunder continued. The umbrella in their hand had long since fallen, and the two of them were already wearing their shirts, tightly clinging to their bodies. Yongqing stopped her footsteps and stared at Dylan's behind her. Dylan stared at the enemy in front of him. His eyes were unprecedentedly serious and indifferent at the moment, as if he had abandoned human feelings. A short dagger appeared in his hand, and the rain dripped onto the blade of the dagger and was split into two pieces. Then Dylan's moved. His movement is not as traceable as other people's movements, his body only trembled slightly, and Yongqing's eyes have lost the latter's figure and disappeared. Bang! The gunshots sounded, Yongqing flashed slightly, and there was a trace of light in his eyes. He saw Dylan's, and because he saw it, his eyes were full of incredible at the moment. A ghost dance begins, and Dylan's does it. The countdown begins. 10. Dylan's appeared in front of the man in black. In the latter's stunned eyes, he waved the dagger in his hand indifferently, and then before it was completely swung down, his body disappeared again, but his hands were still moving fast. Poof! Blood spurted out mercilessly, and the men in black fell to the ground one by one, terrified and unwilling. Dylan seemed to be a ghost without a trace or a place to return. He kept disappearing and reappearing. 9. All the people in black were terrified, and in just 1 second, 5 people died. This person's hand seems to be able to detach from the body, and he can kill people even from the air. 8. The guns were turned around, all facing Dylan's, and all the men in black fell into panic and shot randomly. At this moment, Dylan's showed a mocking smile on the corner of his mouth. Disappears again, reappears. 7. Accidental injuries began to appear. No one could catch Dylan's, and no one could lock Dylan's. 6. Dylan still waved his dagger indifferently, his figure drifted and flashed everywhere, like a ghost, causing people to panic. 5. There were not many people in black left, and they all started to run away in panic. 4. Dylan's was indifferent and ruthless, and began to pursue him. In the eyes of the latter's fear and powerlessness, he waved his dagger and sent them to see Hades. The battle is over, blood is flowing, and a huge smell of blood begins to spread. Every time Dylan's dagger's down, a stream of blood must be spewed out. He cuts the aorta of the human throat, just like killing a pig, without the slightest wave in his eyes. His robes had been dyed a blood-red crimson. With amazing killing intent and a strong smell of blood, Dylan's came to Yangqing's side. Go. Yangqing nodded, his heart churning, completely shocked. This is the power of the space fruit, and this is the power of Dylan's. He is like a god, and his traces are vague and invisible. He can kill enemies through space. What is even more terrifying is the latter's tenacious will. Icy cold killing intent is simply a natural butcher, indifferent and ruthless. The two began to run wildly, facing the storm. At this moment, their mood is very relaxed, without the heaviness and depression before. The boat can already be seen. The boat is the dream, the boat is freedom, they are very close. Get out of here, get out of the cage. Yangqing was excited and walked quickly. Bring a glass of wine, brother. It's a brother when you get on the boat. Dylan's followed closely, looking at the back in front of him, his heart fluctuated slightly. The feeling that made his blood boil was indescribable. Getting closer, they could already see the ship's Alpha had prepared for them. Yangqing let out a howl of excitement and broke through the curtain in the rainstorm. Dylan's was even more excited, his body trembled, and he suddenly disappeared. In order to get on the boat, he actually used his abilities. But at the next moment, under Yangqing's shocked eyes, Dylan suddenly fell from the bow of the boat, like a cannonball, smashing into the muddy water on the ground. Cough cough. Dylan's kept coughing, spitting out mouthfuls of blood. There are enemies. Yangqing's face changed greatly, staring at the bow. A sturdy figure appeared there. He was dressed in black. His explosive muscles almost split the black suit. He was wearing sunglasses and an umbrella. His eyes were cold and cold. Your Excellency Lucifer Saint, the man said lightly. Who are you? Yangqing squinted his eyes. Dylan struggled to stand up, couldn't help but spit out blood again, looking at the eyes of the man at the bow, which contained the killing intent. My name is Rabu, I belong to CP0, here it is. Rabu took off his suit, showing his explosive muscles, stared at Yangqing and said, it was to kill you. Yangqing narrowed his eyes, his right hand trembled slightly, and the quaint flying knife had appeared. I heard that you are a powerful Tianlong person. I really want to see whether it is someone like me who has been practicing hard for 16 years, or someone like you who eats and waits for death. There was no contempt in Rabu's eyes. Don't hide. Die. At this moment, Dylan's had recovered a little, and his figure was blurred. The next moment, he appeared in front of Rab. There was an obvious difference in the latter's eyes, but he was not panicked at the sudden appearance of Dylan's. Shave. In just a split second, Rab had disappeared, and Dylan's dagger slashed through the air, cutting off countless raindrops. Rab had appeared 10 meters away, looking at Dylan's with contempt and ridicule in his eyes. Then he stretched his legs, lifted them up, and slashed down. Land feet. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Call. A strong slash appeared, bringing raindrops all over the sky in an arc and rushing towards Dylan's. Dylan's complexion changed greatly, and his figure quickly disappeared. The slash rushed through the rain curtain and landed on the ground, slicing the ground open, and it was 3 feet long and powerful. Dylan's appeared in front of Rab again, this time closer and more abrupt. In Dylan's eyes, the man seemed to be shaking for such a short time. It's now. Die. Iron block. Bang. The dull sound sounded, and the dagger that Dylan swung hit Rabu's neck. There was a sound like metal clashing, which made his eyes unbelievable. How is that possible? Finger gun. Dirons. Yangqing's eyes were red, and the blood in his body boiled. I'm going to kill you. Like a beast, roaring, and the sound of killing intent spread out. Chapter 16 Escape. The bright red blood flowed out from under Dylan's, dyeing the rain on the ground red, giving off a faint smell of blood. Yang Qing could feel that Dylan's aura was extremely weak, and the ground soon turned blood red. Yang Qing gasped for breath, his clear eyes instantly turned bloody, and he was a little crazy. He raised his head and looked at Rabu with murderous intent in his eyes. Crack! The snap of fingers appeared, and a circle of light blue ripples appeared, covering a 10-meter radius, and in an instant, Rab was included. Immediately afterwards, a flying knife appeared in Yang Qing's right hand. Call! An invisible pressure spread. Rabu's face changed, he was locked. What locked him was the incomparably sharp knife intent, as if it could split space, invincible and unstoppable. Yang Qing's bloody eyes narrowed, staring at the man on the bow. He was looking for flaws in Rab's body. Xiaoli Fei Dao, there are no examples of false hair. He couldn't stop it, precisely because of this invincible flawed method. As long as there are tricks, there will be flaws, and the enemy who fights against this knife, as long as the slightest flaw is revealed, he is already dead. Rabu is a master. His body has very few flaws, even close to perfection. Just standing there casually makes Yang Qing unable to start. The domain of controlling the fruit can help him grasp everything around it, and it can also help him find the flaws of all enemies. This usefulness, Yang Qing did not expect at first, but in the end, he found out that he was also very happy. After all, it was not a useless fruit. Rab was locked, his eyes were solemn for a while, and he stood there still. He faintly felt that as long as he moved a little, he would face death. The torrential rain was dripping frantically, the two of them went up and down, their eyes stared at each other, and the atmosphere was quite dignified. The momentum on Yang Qing's body became stronger and stronger, his anger turned into a killing intent, and then condensed and merged with his own spirit, into a strong sword intent, which was released through his eyes, causing considerable damage to Rabu. Mental stress. Sweat dripped from his forehead involuntarily, and Rabu became annoyed. He was so oppressed by a boy's eyes that he dared not move. He could see clearly that the stinky boy was holding a small iron knife in his hand. Is this the thing? What can it do? What am I afraid of? 16 years of hard work. I don't believe that a child can pose a threat to me. Kill. In just a split second, I can break his neck and complete this mission. Rab shouted angrily in his heart, and his eyes began to sharpen. In Yang Qing's domain, he clearly sensed the movement of the enemy, his blood-colored eyes became brighter, and the killing intent in his eyes could freeze the river. Boom! The thunder roared, and the torrential rain increased. And at this moment, Rab moved. Shave! This is the moment. Yang Qing's bloody eyes shrank suddenly, and his right hand trembled instantly. Woo! A gust of wind hung up, and the raindrops that fell straight were also shattered by this gust of wind, and blue skewed. Under the light of thunder and lightning, the streamer was terribly dazzling. He split the rain curtain, and then recklessly, roaring, boiling, with blood and anger, plunged into the neck of the enemy. Ah! Boom! The thunder sounded again, and Rab's eyes flashed inconceivable, frightened and shocked. His right hand was slowly raised, and then he touched his neck, where there were obvious ups and downs, and a pitch-black primitive flying knife was quietly inserted there, until it was not like a handle, and blood began to rush out. With a pop, Labo fell softly to the ground. The violent storm began to tilt, hitting his body in an instant. Yang Qing bent down and began to gasp frantically, his whole body soaked with sweat. This knife contained all of his energy, and when the knife came out, he felt like he had collapsed, and he had no strength in his entire body. Dylan's. The grief in his eyes could not be erased. Yang Qing dragged his tired body and walked towards Dylan's. He turned his body over, carried it on his back, and walked on the boat with difficulty step by step. Glancing at the land behind him, a large number of men in black are chasing after them with indifference. Yang Qing walked without expression, put away the anchor, and started the rudder. The wooden boat began to slowly leave the harbor, and left here in the face of the heavy rain and strong wind. Cough cough. A slight cough sounded, Yang Qing's complexion changed, and he looked towards the deck, where Dylan's had blood seeping from the corner of his mouth, and his whole body was trembling slightly, but he was clearly still alive. Dylan's. Yang Qing dropped the rudder and ran to Dylan's side. Captain. Dylan's exerted all his strength. After saying this, he began to cough loudly. Every time he coughed, a large amount of blood was sprayed out. Don't talk, rest, have a good rest. Yang Qing said sadly, I will find a doctor, you will be fine. Yeah. Dylan's lay there weakly, and spoke in a strong voice, and after that, he coughed with blood. That finger pierced Dylan's lung lobe, which made him even have problems breathing. Every word he said would drive blood, and he kept coughing and coughing up blood. His injuries were quite serious, and he was only one step away from death. Yang Qing tore off the cloth on his body and found the gauze on the boat. He hurriedly made a simple bandage for Dylan's to stop the blood from the wound. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Drive sailing. He wants to escape from here as soon as possible, find a doctor for Dylan's, and then treat him well. Boom. The thunder roared wildly, the waves were rippling continuously, and the wooden boat was undulating and shaking violently on the sea. Manipulating in such weather requires a lot of energy. Yang Qing remained silent and stood there all the time. Bang! The gunshots sounded again, and after that, more gunshots came out. Sink that wooden ship, quick! Load the gun, charge the gun. Fire! Hurry up, move fast, don't you have enough to eat? A burst of shouts sounded, and Yang Qing turned around. There, 5 warships were chasing after him. The men in black on the ship were running around, filled with ammunition and shells. Boom! The large artillery bombarded the left side of Yang Qing's ship. Under the huge impact, the course changed and the driving was very unstable. Yang Qing squinted his eyes, his face was expressionless, and the chill in his eyes was even worse. He ignored it and continued to drive forward. The wooden boat walked among the shells and swayed left and right like a tumbler. Suddenly, the wooden boat shook violently, and a shell hit the mast of the wooden boat. Maid, aim for me, you rice buckets. The scolding came clearly from the rear, getting closer and closer. Chapter 17 Brothers. There was no expression on Yang Qing's face. 3 shells had already hit the wooden boat. Fortunately, it was only the mast and other parts of the boat, which had little impact on the sailing of the boat. But there is no doubt that Yang Qing's heart has sunk. Because there were more and more chasing troops in the rear, the 5 ships at the beginning had become 8. You really value me. Yang Qing sneered at the corner of his mouth. He didn't turn his head, but still looked ahead. There was the magnificent sea and the place where dreams set sail. Bang! A cannonball hit Yang Qing's back, the wood chips flew, and the powerful impact caused Yang Qing's clothes to shatter, and his body was scratched in many places. But his expression remained unchanged, and he endured great pain under his calm expression. Boom! Another cannonball hit Yang Qing in front of him. The warship behind him was clinging on tightly, and it was quite close to his wooden boat. The distance between the 2 sides was only 20 meters, and the cannonball could easily hit it. Is it over? Helpless flashed in Yang Qing's eyes. Below was the vast sea, and behind him were a large number of chasing soldiers. He had no way to escape. But at this moment, a scream suddenly came from behind, which made him turn around in surprise. Boom, 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 boom. The continuous sound of artillery shelling began to spread, and the warships that were biting Yang Qing were hit one by one, and then slowly began to silent. In Yang Qing's shocked eyes, further back, rows of naval battleships appeared. There were 15 small and medium-sized battleships. On the bow of the ship at the very center stood a sturdy middle-aged man with the national character. Face, strong muscles, black hair and black beard, and the cloak of justice fluttering against the storm behind him. Cap. Yang Qing murmured the name from the corner of his mouth. And in an inconspicuous corner, he found a person, which made his eyes fluctuate and his mood complicated. Alpha, mother. His father and mother stood in the port facing the storm like that, watching him and seeing him off. Alpha's always serious, expressionless face now carries a strong sense of reluctance and expectation. Go towards your dreams, go fly, go chase. Yangqing seemed to hear Alpha's heartbeat, and his heart shook, and then nodded heavily into the man's eyes, and then he waved to his mother who was full of tears. He's so young, Alpha cried, holding Alpha tightly. Our son is destined to be extraordinary, don't be a stumbling block for him, let him go and let him fly. Alpha patted Alpha on the shoulder. Amid the sound of gunfire, the 8 warships that were chasing continued to sink, and the screams came one after another, but no one paid any attention. The danger that is coming to an end has just retreated. Deeply forgetting his parents, he remembered the expressions of the 2 in his mind. Then he turned sharply, his hands firmly on the helm. With the roar of the wind and the roar of thunder and lightning, the wooden boat slowly set off, and then disappeared from the eyes of everyone behind. On this day, a 6-year-old Tianlong person drove a wooden boat away from the comfortable Tianlong Palace, sailed to a distant dream, and began his difficult journey. The weather cleared up, and it was the same weather 10 miles above the sea. The wooden boat had been traveling for 3 hours. Yangqing was worried about Dylan's injury, so after finding the next island, he docked the boat without hesitation and disembarked with Dylan's on his back. He carried Dylan's, who was much taller than himself, and quickly walked towards the villages and towns on the island. The village and town are not far away, and Yangqing soon arrived in the town. The villagers were stunned to see a child covered in injuries dragging another unconscious teenager. Help! Save him! Yangqing looked at the villagers surrounding him with bewildered eyes, not knowing who the doctor was. Where is the doctor? I'll find a doctor. Quick, help him, he's dying, he shouted. Unexpectedly, the woman heard his call for help, but stopped moving forward, looked at Yangqing with a charming face, and smiled slightly. What does it have to do with me when he is dead? I don't know him. Save him, please. Yangqing was stunned for a moment, then held back his anger and begged. I can save him, but do you have Bailey? Give me Bailey, I'll save him. The woman sat on the steps beside her, with her legs raised, her high heels loose, revealing her sexy heels, looking at Yangqing asked. I have a boat. That boat is for you. Yangqing pointed to the wooden boat on the shore in a hurry, and everyone looked there. A tattered wooden boat was parked there, with holes all over its body, and I don't know how many times it was hit by shells. Hey Tilda, what do I want your broken ship to do? I can't pay for the medical bills. I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. The woman sneered, then got up and prepared to leave. The onlookers all showed sympathy, but there was nothing they could do. Everyone in the town knew about the strange character of Tush, and it was hard to say anything if they could not be saved. Bang! In a situation where everyone was shocked, this child who seemed to be only about 6 years old did unimaginable things. He just bent his knees like that, then knelt on the ground, and knelt behind Lita's who was leaving behind. Please, save her. The voice was heavy, but it contained strong pleas and sadness. Rita stopped walking away. She turned around, looked at the child kneeling on the ground, her face became serious, and then she. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Spoke earnestly. Men kneel down to their parents, others don't need you to kneel. Then tell me, what does this injured boy have to do with you? At this moment, Dylan suddenly trembled violently and started shaking. Get up come Blood was gushing out of his mouth, and tears were flowing out of his eyes. Come on get up come on. You are a Tianlong person, a nobleman of the world, the most noble race in the world, how can you lower your high head to save me? Why? Why did this? He was growling, angry, and even more moved. He's my brother. Please, save him, Yangqing said. Everyone's eyes changed, looking at the thin boy kneeling on the ground. They only felt that a certain part of their hearts was deeply touched, and then they admired. The seriously injured Dylan's even clenched his fists fiercely at this moment, and then released them again. Tears blurred his eyes, but they couldn't stop flowing. Okay, I'm cured. Ritas was silent for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Chapter 18 Death is Coming. The young boy kneeling on the ground, his behavior shocked and touched everyone at this moment. In this world, after all, there are things more worth defending than interests. That is friendship, blood, and a beating heart. Hearing that the doctor finally agreed, Yang Qing breathed a sigh of relief, and then fell into a coma in front of him and fell to the ground. There was exclamations all around, and Ritas changed his face even more. Quick, 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 bring these two children to my clinic. Ritas shouted anxiously in a clear and crisp voice. She has a weird personality. The people in the township immediately began to move around in a hurry, moving Yang Qing and Dylan's. When Yang Qing opened his eyes again, what he saw was white flowers, the ceiling of flowers. He got up and saw his body wrapped around his body, wrapped in circles of bandages, wrapping himself like a mummy. The sea breeze blew softly, blowing the floral curtains on the side windows. Yang Qing sat there quietly, recalling everything before, and was a little silent. After all, he still neglected. I didn't expect the revenge of the Tianlong people to come so quickly and so swiftly, that the CP0 people almost made them annihilated. The next 8 warships made them only one step away from death. Dylan's wasn't beside him. I don't know where, but he must have been saved. You're awake. As soon as he stepped out of the room, he was confronted by a girl about the same age as him, with golden glasses and long golden hair, shining in the sunlight. This woman looks very similar to Lita's, both are equally beautiful, as if she is a child's version of her. Holding a book in her hand, she sat quietly at the door, and when she saw Yang Qing come out, she spoke softly. Where's Dylan's? Yang Qing asked. Is that your companion? His injuries are very serious and he is still being treated. The girl pushed her glasses, her clear voice was very pleasant. I'm going to see him. Yang Qing left here after saying that. There are not many rooms here, so Yang Qing quickly found Dylan's room. He lay there quietly, naked, with his upper body naked, and Ritas was quietly busy there. The faint smell of blood came out, and Yang Qing's eyes were a little sour. It was all because of him that Dylan suffered such a serious injury. His lungs were punctured, and it was difficult to even breathe. You can imagine the pain Dylan was enduring at the moment. You're here. Come and help me get the tools. Litas wore a mask, covering her perfect face, and quietly ordered Yang Qing. The operation was going on quietly, and Rita's movements were slow but steady. In the face of fresh blood, her face was calm and she had good professional qualities. For 5 full hours, neither of them rested. After hard work, Dylan's wound was finally sutured, and Litas used a strange drug, which Yang Qing didn't understand, but it was very effective. At the end, Dylan's mouth was wrapped with a white bandage, his breathing calmed down, and Yang Qing breathed a sigh of relief. Next, it depends on his recovery ability. Ritas wiped the sweat from his forehead and said tiredly. How long will it take to recover? Yang Qing asked worriedly. The shortest 2 years, the longer it may be 5 years. Ritas said. Yang Qing fell silent, then walked over and held Dylan's cold hand. Thank you, doctor. Hey Tilda, Ritas laughed and walked out of the room. Dylan's was seriously injured. His lung lobes were completely pierced. Even because of the shock during the attack, a large part of the walking position was shattered. It took a long time to recover. It took a month for Tush to open eyes. At first glance, he saw Yang Qing who was sleeping at the head of his bed, and tears rolled out of his eyes. Lucifer, Dylan's cried. Yang Qing quickly woke up when he heard the movement. He was thrilled to see Dylan's finally awake. You're finally awake. The doctor said you'll be well soon, recover quickly. When you recover, let's have a drink. After drinking it, you will be a brother for life. With all his strength, Dylan stretched out his right hand, and then grabbed Yang Qing's hand tightly. Brother. Yang Qing was stunned for a moment, then smiled, very happy. Brother. Dylan's was calm, but he remembered everything that happened before. Yang Qing is a brother who is worth his life to accompany and work hard for, and is his real brother. A year has passed quickly, and Dylan's injury has not yet fully recovered. So the two of them stayed on the island all the time. Young Qing didn't stop cultivating, and his true qi became stronger all the time. And his moves are not only Xiao Li Fi Dao. After a long period of hard work, he finally collected 15 pieces of broken silver and exchanged for the second martial arts cheat book in the Swordsman Mall. This is a real swordsmanship, a peerless swordsmanship. 9 Swords of Dugu is passed down from Dugu, seeking defeat and breaking all laws in the world. This is a very powerful swordsmanship. On the way to the flaws of the moves, it has reached the peak like Xiao Li Fi Dao, and with Yang Qing's devil fruit, it can control everything around it. Of utter destruction. 9 Swords of Dugu. Yang Qing's eyes shone brightly. He knew that this was an extremely powerful swordsmanship. It was terrifying for 2 reasons. Sound, but it is difficult to see the sword shadow. Wait until. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. When found, the person was already dead. Second, his flawed method, breaking all the laws in the world, is even more terrifying. Under its sword move, everything of the enemy is clearly presented, completely unconcealed. Combining the two, this set of swordsmanship is invincible and invincible in the world. Yang Qing began to practice. Dugu swordsmanship requires a lot of comprehension. It takes a long time to understand, study and practice. Therefore, he cannot slack off. Without a sword, Yang Qing picked up a branch on the back mountain alone and gestured. This trick is still not fast enough. The turning in the air is as fast as lightning, and it takes more practice. The distance of this move should be shorter, otherwise the flaw will be too large and it will be broken. This sword ... Yang Qing kept rehearsing, constantly finding deficiencies, and then improving. His swordsmanship was advancing by leaps and bounds at an incredible speed, and his strength was also getting stronger. As time passed, Dylan's looked better and better, and Yang Qing smiled more and more. Come on, you'll get better soon. Yang Qing said happily. Yes. Dylan's nodded deeply, his eyes resolute and deep. I will never lose to anyone again. Yes, he will never lose to anyone again. Even if he dies, he will win. The price of losing is too painful. Okay. Yang Qing stretched out his right hand. In the air, the 2 hands clasped tightly together. Our goal is to be the strongest in the world. Let ambition devour this sick world and let death come. Since the light has been eroded, the world will be turned into darkness. Death, here we come. The 2 young people looked at each other, clasped their hands, and their eyes were bright. Their ambitions made everyone tremble. The little girl holding a book outside the door watched this scene with a smile on the corner of her mouth, and then stretched out her hand. Pushed his glasses. Death. Interesting 2 people. Chapter 19. 3 years. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, 2 years have passed. Dylan's body recovered very quickly. He was able to get up and walk by himself, but he still had some residual injuries, and he would be out of breath after strenuous exercise. And Yang Qing's swordsmanship is under his careful study and practice, to the realm of a little success, has been considered to be completely in control. His internal skills have also gone from a third-rate master to a second-rate master. At this stage, the function of Shantianyi Qigong is no longer great, and his running route can only support cultivation to the realm of a second-rate master. In other words, if Yang Qing wants to go further, he must change his internal strength. All martial arts cheats in this game can be purchased with broken silver, but after 2 years, although I have already selected the internal skills that I will practice, I still haven't saved enough. 25 ingots. That's right, this time, Yang Qing's favorite internal power method will cost him 20 pieces of silver to exchange, and in 2 years, he has only saved 10 ingots, which means that if he wants to exchange this internal power, he will pay it back. 15 ingots are required. It's really a difficult journey. Yang Qing shook his head and smiled bitterly. However, if I get this book of internal strength, I won't have to worry about it in this life. A full 20 pieces of silver smashing technique, it can be said that in the entire game, this internal strength cheat book is definitely considered to be upper middle class, and its effect is even more powerful. Baiming Divine Art. There is a fish in Baiming. Its name is Kun. Kun is so big, I don't know how many thousands of miles it is, but it is 90,000 miles away. No one knows the power of Baiming Divine Art. He can forcibly absorb the internal energy in the enemy's body, and then transform it into his own body to strengthen himself. And this secret book made Yang Qing even more happy. He was able to cultivate to the innate realm, which is the realm of the unity of nature and man in martial arts. At this level, stepping into the void on foot, infuriating with the heaven and the earth, the power in the body is endless, the power is terrifying, and it can shatter the void. I'm really looking forward to learning this martial art. Yang Qing was very eager. This year, he is 8 years old. Although he is still a child and only 1.3 meters tall, he was born like a little tiger, which is unimaginably powerful. I've reached the realm of a second-rate master. If I fight, I should be able to be equivalent to 50 or 60 million pirates. Yang Qing is very satisfied with the progress of his strength. He relied on the little Li Fei Dao, who had no false hair, and then relied on the domain of fruit control to gather the energy and spirit of his entire body and kill him with one blow. This can only be said to be a fluke, and it cannot be said that his strength is stronger than him. You know, at that moment, life and death are only a thin line. If the flying knife is a few tenths of a second slower, it must be himself who will die. Little Li Fidao can be used as a trump card, but it must not be used too much. Yang Qing thought to himself, after 2 years of practice, Xiao Li Fidao has also been trained by himself to the stage of perfection. It can be said that it is absolutely powerful. But unfortunately, Xiao Li Fidao is stronger, and the burden on the body is even stronger. Now, when I am at the peak, I can also send out 3 swords, which is not comparable to the endurance of Dugu Jujian. Yang Qing shook his head, but a ray of light flashed in his eyes. I believe that this knife can definitely kill pirates with a bounty of more than 100 million. He has become really strong, but it's not enough. Although Xiao Li Fei Dao is strong, he can only send out 3 swords. If he encounters the previous situation again and is hunted down by many people, he can only stand in place and wait to die. Yang Qing continued to practice and improve, and after another year, when he was 9 years old, Dylan's body finally recovered. Finally, this year, Dylan's has become an adult, at the age of 18. He is 1.75 meters tall, the wind blows the broken hair on his forehead, and with a sunny smile on his face, he is with Yang Qingdi. The temperament of a meeting has been very different. Yang Qing is standing on the coast at the moment, waving the branches in his hands, standing in the sea, closing his eyes to feel the resistance of the sea, practicing the 9 swords of Dugu, but did not notice Dylan's. It seems that he is stronger. Dylan's eyes showed an inexplicable light. He stepped out, and with a snort, his whole person suddenly disappeared. He is now 1,000 meters away from Yang Qing, but after taking this step, he has already appeared in front of Yang Qing. Let me try how strong you are now. Dylan snorted and threw a punch. Yang Qing closed his eyes. His whole body's infuriating energy accelerated, the branch in his hand trembled suddenly, the sword that was originally slow, suddenly accelerated. Moreover, after this movement, the speed of the branches increased geometrically, and finally turned into a flash of electric light in Dylan's surprised eyes. So fast. The branch pierced Dylan's neck in an instant, and Yang Qing opened his eyes. Dylan's, who was pierced by a branch in front of him, turned into a phantom, and his people were already 10 meters away. Space fruit ability, mysterious and unpredictable, powerful and incredible. Ha, sure enough, you are much stronger. You seem to have powerful skills again. Dylan's laughed. Yes, I have practiced another sword technique, which is very powerful. Yang Qing nodded. Oh, Dylan's face changed. What was the powerful swordsmanship described by everyone in front of him? He was curious, and then, the next moment, at a distance of 10 meters, his hand suddenly moved. Dead space. The snap of his fingers sounded, and a circle of blue ripples enveloped the two of them. Compared with 3 years ago, Yang Qing's field was wider, with a radius of 20 meters. And at this moment, Yang Qing's eyes also changed, in his eyes. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Dylan's attack seems to have turned into an arrow. Dylan stood there and kept bombarding with both hands, and then strangely, the attack would appear in front of Yang Qing. This is the horror of the space fruit, which can launch an attack from a long distance, and it is impossible to prevent it. Broken arrow. The branches trembled slightly, and Yang Qing's body suddenly rose from the ground like a spring at this moment, and then it was like a snake. It was as fast as a sword light. Thousands of attacks almost turned into phantoms and were sent out at the same time. In Dylan's shocked eyes, Yang Qing's attack was completely cancelled out by him. Amazing! Dylan's exclaimed sincerely, you are indeed stronger. Ha ha! Yang Qing laughed, then looked at Dylan's happily, you are not bad, a serious injury has made your strength even stronger. My fruit ability requires mental strength and physical strength. Although this serious injury has tortured me all the time for the past 3 years, it is also a test for me, and it is naturally stronger. Dylan sighed. Then, the two fell silent. Looking at the tattered ship that was still parked not far away, the eyes of the two suddenly lit up again. There is wine on board. It was promised at the beginning, and now it is finally possible. If you are drunk, you will have a rest. If you are not drunk, you will not return. With a long laughter, the two figures suddenly ran and headed towards the wrecked boat under the setting sun. Chapter 20. Get out of Shigu Town. Sunset, the shipwreck, on the deck, two teenagers sat opposite each other with smiles on their faces. The strong aroma of wine spread far and wide. The two of them scooped out with a bowl, and then drank it one by one. The long laughter continued to spread, and within a while, they had already stumbled. 1 cup, and toast, your body is finally healed. 1 cup, to you and my brotherhood. 1 cup, toast to you and my dream. The 3 glasses of wine slammed down, and the faces of the two teenagers flushed. Dylan's eyes flashed with light, with a cheerful smile on his face, and his heart was excited. He didn't say a word, he just drank. Everything was in the wine. In the end, the two of them crossed each other's arms, drank the wine that passed between each other's arms, and truly became brothers. Those who are born as brothers are also brothers in death. Yang Qing looked into Dylan's eyes and said seriously, and then, in midair, their hands clenched tightly with a pop. The two kept drinking, and until the end, tears were streaming down, and they sang strange songs indiscriminately. After getting tired, he fell into a deep sleep. It was not until the next day that the two of them touched their aching heads and opened their hazy eyes. Why are you here? As soon as Yang Qing opened his eyes, he was surprised to see a beautiful little girl with blonde hair sitting on the deck, quietly turning over the pages of the book in front of the morning light. Hearing Yang Qing's voice, the little girl pushed her glasses and said lightly, every morning, I come here to read. Dylan's also touched his head and woke up at this time. When he saw the little girl, he smiled and said, it's Moria. Moria nodded quietly and stopped talking to the two of them. Yang Qing didn't care when he touched his nose. He had known Moria's character clearly in the past 3 years. This is a real university tyrant who has read the whole book. I heard that her dream is to read books all over the world. The two jumped off the boat and walked slowly along the beach to the town. Ah, is it? It's a horrible dream, Dylan exclaimed. Yeah, it's really scary. Yang Qing nodded. Hateful mortals. Looking at the two distant figures, Moria pushed her glasses and continued to study with the book in her hands. In the world of Shuiba, mortals really don't understand. Yang Qing and Dylan entered the village, greeted the people in the village, and then went to Rita's after having a breakfast at Aunt Sarah's house. Rita's is still in that sexy dress, with long black silk legs, nurse clothes, and long blonde hair. She is sitting at the table at the moment, slowly flipping through medical books. The two walked to the door, looked at each other, and then bowed deeply in salute. Thank you, doctor. I have troubled the doctor for the past 3 years. For the past 3 years, Rita's has really taken care of Dylan's very carefully. She fulfilled her duty as a doctor and was very dedicated in the healing process. Dylan's was originally very prejudiced against this woman who made Yang Qing kneel, but as time passed, because of the latter's attitude, he gradually recognized this woman's position in his heart. This is the woman who saved his life. Bang! Then, the two knelt down together, with their foreheads deeply pressed to the ground. At this moment, Yang Qing is no longer a Tianlong person, and Dylan's is not a proud powerhouse. They are just two patients, expressing their gratitude to the doctor who saved him or his brother. Oh, thank me. Rita's closed the book on the table, then looked at the two kneeling teenagers at the door, a smile on his face. Now that you have recovered, get out of here, you are not welcome here. In the stunned eyes of the two, Rita started to roar angrily, and even threw the book on the table. They were so frightened that they quickly avoided and looked at the latter in confusion. Paralyzed, I have eaten and drank my mother for 3 years for nothing. Get out of my way, I will be angry when I see you. Items in the room flew out one by one. Yang Qing and Dylan's were so frightened that they ran away quickly. When they got to the street, they looked at the kind old people in the town. They greeted them with a smile, but they didn't want to. The latter took up crutches and started to drive them out. This Nima is inexplicable. We seem to be targeted, what the hell is going on? The two looked at each other, confused, and fled all the way to the boat. In their surprised eyes, the original broken wooden boat had no idea who had repaired it. Get out, you've had 3 years of labor and capital, hurry up and get out. Don't run, I'll kill you two stinky boys. Don't think I don't know you stole my oranges. Don't run, come back to me. The crowd behind them grew bigger and bigger, and Yang Qing and Dylan's were horrified. Quick, quick, start the boat. Come on, get out of here, this place is horrible. The two hurriedly put away the anchor, raised the sail, and Yang Qing took the helm. Chased by the large crowd behind, the ship began to drive slowly and steadily. Call. Finally, the ship left the harbor, and it was already some distance away from the large crowd. Yang Qing and Dylan's looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief. They don't know why it has become like this, but there is no doubt that if they stay there, they will definitely be killed. It's terrifying. How on earth did we offend them? This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Yang Qing and Dylan's were puzzled and confused. At this moment, there was a loud shout from the shore. Lucifer, if you don't make a name for yourself, I won't forgive you. Don't go back to this Shigu town. Dyrance, if you don't make a name for yourself after you go out, don't try to marry my daughter. Daddy, don't talk nonsense. Come on, two brats, work hard for your dreams. There must be some promise. Voices of expectation came from the shore one after another, and Yang Qing and Dylan's felt a shock in their hearts in an instant, and hot tears flowed from their eyes. They finally understood why the people on the island were so abnormal today. Stinky boy, if your name can't be heard in the world, my mother will save you in vain. At the back of the crowd, Letus smoked a cigarette and looked at the ship that was going further and further, with a smile in his eyes. We will definitely do our best. Quote. Yang Qing and Dylan's shouted loudly, responding to the adults on the shore. Ha ha ha, go away, brats. Be safe. Good wind. The boat was moving gradually, the sea breeze was steady, and soon the people on the shore were no longer visible. Yang Qing and Dylan's felt a little depressed. This is a group of lovely and kind people who not only rescued them from life and death, but also gave them hope and regeneration. They are their own relatives. Driving towards the East 3 states. At this moment, a faint voice sounded. Who? Yang Qing and Dylan's looked at each other and shouted vigilantly. When they turned around and found the figure in the corner of the boat, the faces of the two were full of surprise. Moria.